Hello and welcome, connoisseurs of fine common cardboard, to today's live stream and to this iteration of Let's Build with the Common Connoisseurs and me, Papa Popper, also known as Ryan. And today we're going to be taking a look at one of my favorite commanders in the entire format of Pauper Commander, and that is Mayhem Devil, the devil himself. This is a commander that I brought in a mid-range capacity several years ago, brought it to the cPDH DDB. The deck was always a performer, something that I really enjoyed playing, and ultimately, it's something that I'm really excited to revisit, which is strange because the deck is so damn hard to build. Any person who has tackled Mayhem Devil will know that there is a laundry list of incredible cards for the deck that pull it in a lot of different directions. And today we're going to be exploring one that is informed by my work on Elrond, which is in blue. You may say, why blue? It's also informed by Golem, and it's informed by Passageway Seer and by Rilsa Rail. So we're going to be exploring some of the things that I've learned in building these decks and ways that we can leverage the power of equipment and treasure making so that we can produce a lot more treasure and apply pressure much earlier in the game and get on the board. So really stoked to have you all here. Let me know in chat below if you can hear me. For those of you who migrated over from the last one, I'm glad you made it. I made a scheduled post, a scheduled video on my phone because I've just been really busy the last couple of days and wasn't able to get it up on YouTube. So I did it from my phone, and when I got home, it wouldn't allow me to essentially check into my OBS and to the YouTube through my computer. It was only going to be a mobile thing. So I'm glad you all made it. And wow, we've got Jared says, glad to catch this live. Jared, really glad to see you. For those of you here, Winfro here is a friend of mine that I only just got to meet in person recently. And but we've been in communication for a really long time about Pauper, and was part of the Pauper Guild and also MTG Pauper, which is Alex Ullman's channel. And it was great. I saw him in Seattle at Riches to Rags, or Rags to Riches, which is the Pauper 60 card, legendary Pauper 60 card tournament. So good to see you here, Jared, and glad to have you. Let's see, we've got a couple people trickling in here. And yeah, so the core principle of Mayhem Devil was always built on this sort of mid-range platform of Rakdos good stuff. And that meant good removal, good draw, aggressive threats that drew us cards, and then built around also a model of saying, how do we make our deck very good with Mayhem Devil while not relying on Mayhem Devil? And the reason that we didn't want to rely on Mayhem Devil is because ultimately when it resolves, it oftentimes results in a lot of things dying. And in this format, where creatures are so core to whether you're playing combo or whether you're playing aggro, the ability of Mayhem Devil to resolve and then immediately kill a lot of things on the table, or defensively hold up a lot of ammunition to do so, sort of threaten it upon everybody, is something that most players don't really want to have happen. So they're going to counter or kill it because letting it stick can be pretty painful for the table. So the deck was always built around a lot of ramp. It was built around mid-range threats, the Monarch, the Initiative, trying to grind value, and then we're going to try and cast Mayhem Devil a couple of times, and when we finally resolve it, we're going to pop treasures to make mana, which produces a sacrifice trigger, and we're going to use that mana to pay for blood tokens. So mana, 1 mana for the treasure into a blood token, gives us 2 triggers and allows us to take a card from our hand and pitch it, while also producing 2 1-damage triggers to kill things on the table. So I chose to lean into that strategy because essentially playing to an aristocrat strategy oftentimes creates tension between having one of your 3 pieces in play. And I've played a lot of aristocrats. So it's your payoff, your sacrifice enabler, and your fodder. And if you don't have one of those pieces, it feels really awkward. So if you have your payoff and you have your sack outlet, but you don't really have anything you want to sacrifice, that feels bad because you're putting yourself behind on resources to play into this strategy. And if your opponent goes and just kills your payoff or kills your sacrificer, then you lost your entire board state. If you have fodder and a payoff but no sacrificer, then your payoff doesn't work. And if you have fodder plus a sacrificer but no real payoff, then it feels pretty anemic. So we leaned out of aristocrats and into this blood money build, which was around treasure and blood tokens. What I've observed about Mayhem Devil, given how the meta has shifted over the last year, I would say, is that things have got faster. The average game is shorter. There's a lot more combat damage in play. There's even more creatures than ever before, which means that we have a lot of things to kill and a lot of things worth killing. And the creatures that we were playing in the deck didn't really allow us to get on the board early and start swinging and producing treasures and blood tokens. So what I want to do with today's build is I want to lower the curve quite a bit. We're going to lean into what I've done with Rilsa Rail, with Passageway Seer, with Golem, where we have these black evasive creatures, cards like Tormented Soul, Changeling Outcast, any sort of black flyer. You've got Dothy Horror and Dothy Slayer. You've got Highborn Ghoul. Basically unblockable black threats. And there's some in red that we can look into as well as flying threats that are going to enable us to attach something like a Beamtown Beatstick or a Sticky Fingers or a Ceremonial Knife or a Prying Blade or a Gold Vein Pick to a creature that can apply pressure very early and then start producing those treasures and those blood tokens from a much earlier stage of the game. And that's going to help us really move into a place where we can actually cast our threats, we can move up the curve, and we can apply pressure more early. We're still going to have the good mid-range game plan, and in some ways it'll actually be better because the Corrupted Conviction, the Village Rites, Reckoner's Bargain, Deadly Dispute, Costly Plunder, Nasty End type stuff, those cards are going to be even better if our threats are something we're happy to sacrifice. If we just have a 1/1, say we have a couple of evasive creatures in play and we just have this 1/1 and we top deck a Reckoner's Bargain, we're pretty happy to turn that 1/1 into 2 cards if we're running low on gas. We're not really happy to sacrifice something like a Thorn of the Black Rose, a Crimson Fleet Commodore, a Mayhem Devil. And so in a lot of cases, we only played the sacrifice cards that could sacrifice artifacts. So we would sacrifice treasures, blood tokens, rocks, lands, things like that. But the ability to play things like Village Rites and Corrupted Conviction, maybe even Nasty End if we have a way to maybe tempt and get those 3 cards, is also going to increase the density of efficient draws in the deck. So we're pushing into new territory here. I'm super excited. I wish we had Alcadron up in here. He would have been a great co-host for this because Alcadron is also an enjoyer of Mayhem Devil and also, you know, knows how tough it is to build it. So, and if I see him a little bit out of breath, it's because I got off work about 15 minutes ago and raced through traffic to get back here. So let's go into the deck build. Here we go. And just take a quick check here. Wow, we've got a bunch of people stopping on by. Welcome everybody. Hope you're having a great day and glad to have you all here. Couple of first things. Yeah, well actually let's just go into the deck build, okay? So let's look at Mayhem Devil's text for those of you unfamiliar. Mayhem Devil is a 3/3 for 3 in Rakdos. Anytime anyone sacrifices anything, we deal 1 damage to anything and anyone. So Mayhem Devil is very interesting in that when you play it, you're kind of always on because you're always watching for those triggers. If you miss the triggers, it's a miss trigger, right? That's on you. So you're always kind of hounding for treasures. Now, one of the things that allows you to do is to play quite an interesting social game where people will they'll pair up with you and they will engage in coalitionary behavior to sacrifice their own things to produce triggers so that you can sack your things to kill things together. And that's pretty darn cool. So so pretty dang excited about this this commander in general. Let's start by going and looking at the original build of Mayhem Devil so that we know where we're coming from. If we have something to contrast against with our build here. So this is the list here. You can see it's very popular. It's almost like 4,300 views, and we are going to be pivoting from it. Alex Scott, welcome to the chat. Good to see you, buddy. Glad to have you all here. Okay, so in this deck, we have 35 lands, which I think is a pretty dang good number. We have 15 ramp spells. This is one of the places that things are going to change. We're probably going to focus mainly on 2-mana rocks. We're going to focus on the Sticky Fingers Prying Blade, you know, the Gold Vein Pick, the Beantown Beat Stick. These cards that are going to help us apply pressure while also generating treasures are going to be a really good synergy with that. And then maybe we'll play some of the things that make creatures or something along those lines. But you can see that the curve is quite chonky. There's a lot of stuff at 4. There's a lot of stuff at 5. You know, if we go down here, it's a pretty heavy weighting. So the deck always felt best when you played a whole bunch of rocks early on and then could start playing basically meaningful mid-range threats that generated value. And what we're going to do is really lower this curve. So another thing you're going to see here is that we've got a pretty nice removal suite. I think that we'll probably end up going a little bit down on removal just because with more treasures and more blood tokens, Mayhem Devil is going to be a better source of removal, and we can allocate those for more efficient threats or, you know, maybe more lands if we're finding ourselves strapped. And then a couple of things I wanted to note too that are really exciting about this deck, and what got me to think about it again is really Mirkwood Bats. Okay, so Mirkwood Bats got printed, and this really changes Mayhem Devil quite a bit because it's tutorable at 4 mana with Dimir Houseguard. If you already have Mirkwood Bats and you have Dimir Houseguard, you can kind of like yeet your board at the table pretty hard. The moment Mirkwood Bats resolves, if we have treasures and blood tokens, not only do they deal 1 damage to anyone or anything, but everybody's going to lose 1 every time it's created or every time we sack them. And we can do that the moment it resolves. So this card is tutorable with Dimir Houseguard, and it's a 2/3 flyer, which means it doesn't die to sweepers, and it carries a cranial plating like a boss. So this is really why I wanted to revisit it. The second thing is Ingenious, the Reckless Fireweaver and the Ingenious Artillerist. These cards are also going to be in here as well. Almost like most cracked common ever. Yeah, Mirkwood Bats is definitely pushed. I don't think I've ever seen a card that says whenever you create a token, that means that trigger is, it's kind of like a cast trigger. There's no responding. I mean, you can respond to the life loss, but the life loss is there. It's going to happen. So definitely very good. Yeah, super excited about this. So in some ways, we are going to be like, it's not going to be hugely different from this. But I've opened up a second list because I want to work on it in this sandbox before we go over into the other one. So, okay, let's take a look here and see about the things that we probably won't be cutting. So the cards that we really like here that we'll probably be keeping are probably still the Monarch and the Initiative. And then the question is going to be kind of the stuff in between here. When it comes to this, because we're still going to want the Underdark Explorer. You know, Gary is still going to be great. Gary's actually going to be better here because we're going to have cards like the Highborn Ghoul, the Dothy Slayer, Dothy Horror, you know, more 1-drops with 1 black pip. So Gary's going to be quite good. Vicious Battle Rager, of course. Falkenrath Celebrants might be a decent top end, but we could also just replace this with something cheaper that also makes a blood token. Thorn could be fine too. Stirring Bard, I think, is great. And then basically, you know, maybe cutting things like the Hoarding Ogre, it's possible. Maybe not playing Falkenrath Noble. But basically, we're just going to try and get that curve way down in favor of evasive stuff. Oh my gosh. I just spilled some liquid. Hold on. I'm all scattered, folks. Long day at work here. Oh boy. Okay. Question from Jared here. Would Orcish Medicine potentially have a home in this deck? Synergizes with the bats and could help protect something we care about, or just give Mayhem Devil lifelink? Yeah, that's a great point. And sorry, just getting a little bit of paper towel here to clean up the stuff while I talk. So Orcish Medicine is going to amass and give us a 1/1. While also giving it lifelink or indestructible. And I think that's pretty appealing in a lot of ways. We could definitely consider that one. The two that strike me as the most playable are going to actually be Offer Immortality, and then there's a second one. It's in this list here. It is called, let's see, Battle Rage Blessing. So Battle Rage Blessing and Offer Immortality both give indestructible and Death Touch. The lifelink is not as important, I think, in this deck because we are just going to be more of the beatdown than previously. We're still going to have life gain effects. We're still going to have Gary. We may still even play, you know, actually we'll play Extort because we're going to get the Basilica Screecher. But definitely something we could consider because it does create a token, and the token can be sacrificed. So definitely like that. We could definitely consider it. Okay, so let's get to work here. And I think, again, the biggest thing is that our ramp is going to turn into small creatures. Our big creatures are going to turn into smaller creatures. And our draw is going to become much more efficient and cheaper. So let's go into it. So I've already put a couple of cards in here, as you'll notice. We've got all of these here. We've also got Thieves' Tools, which I put in, Whisper Silk Cloak as well. So these modifications are kind of the slam dunks. We'll probably also play Bone Splitter. Because Bone Splitter synergizes really well with any evasive creature. Basically, being able to, it's kind of like a 1-mana. It's kind of like a 1-mana 2/1 that doesn't die. You know, it's like it's always in play. When one thing dies, you just swap it over to the other thing, and so it's very efficient. We're still going to play Crypt Rats and Pestilence. Our draw spells here: Corrupted Conviction, Village Rites, Costly Plunder, Deadly Dispute, and Reckoner's Bargain are sort of the classics. Go for the Throat, Cast Down, Lightning Bolt, Galvanic Blast gets quite a bit better in this because we're just more likely to have a lot of artifacts early on. And you'll notice I'm also playing the Impetus cards. And these Impetus cards are particularly good in aggressive decks. These Impetus cards are great in almost any deck, to be quite honest. In control decks, they're slightly less busted. But the reason these cards are so strong is that you put them on your opponent's creature, and it fogs that creature for the rest of the game. These cards are almost better than Deep Freeze, because what Deep Freeze does is it turns off their commander, and they can't attack anybody. And they can't really reset their commander easily, because it doesn't die to Bolt anymore. Doesn't, you know, it might die to Galvanic Blast. And basically, all they can do is block, but they can't, like, block big things, because people won't send big things at them. So Deep Freeze kind of turns the commander off and has no abilities. Where Parasitic and Shiny Impetus are really good is by sending a card like a Dargo or a Malcolm at somebody else, and it becomes bigger and it starts to generate value for us. But the gameplay implication is that if I put one of those things on somebody else's creature and they realize that creature is only ever going to attack them or the other person for the rest of the game, they may kill that creature to deny us any value. But what that means is that we spent one card and we got two. And what if they protect their creature? So it's like it's a really powerful exchange. And then if it sits in play for a while, they're just generating treasures. You know, they're losing life off of Parasitic Impetus. Impetus is probably the Parasitic Impetus is probably the worst of them. Maybe the green one up there as well. The green one's 5 mana, but it does kind of eat another creature, so it generates more value. But the Psychic Impetus, Shiny Impetus, and the white one, Martial Impetus, are all very, very good cards. And with unblockable creatures, we can always put this on a Changeling Outcast, and it's basically just another copy of Sticky Fingers. So we're actually going to put this one on there as well. Okay, so you can see we've got a bunch of creatures that I've added in here. One thing I was thinking about exploring too is kind of the Reaping the Graves, black recursion type stuff. We already want to play things that, you know, enchantments or artifacts that sit and play that return creatures to from our graveyard to our hand. So something like Reaping the Graves could be really good here, and we'll have a lot of creatures. So there is this potential that we could draw like 4 or 5 creatures out of our graveyard with a Reaping the Graves. There's also the Undying Evil supernatural stamina stuff, which I've found to be very, very good recently. These black grave flicker effects acting as protection, but they also help us reuse ETBs. We can also use them to apply it to a creature and then sack it to something like Village Rites, so that we essentially don't have to lose the creature. We can keep the creature at the cost of that card and then get the 2 cards from the Village Rites. So let's start looking through these, and we're going to switch this up to grid so it's a little bit easier. We've got these draw spells here. Let's add a couple of other draw spells that we're definitely going to play. We're going to play the Impulse type cards. So we're going to play Reckless Impulse, and we're going to play Wren's Resolve. These cards are particularly good when you're playing aggressive decks, because you don't really want them in combo decks, but you want them in aggressive decks definitely, because there's nothing you're hitting that you won't be able to like cast really. You're always going to hit stuff that you will want to just play out onto the field. So these are cheap, efficient draw 2s. We definitely like that. Okay, what other draw spells are there? We're going to swap over and see which ones we want to keep. We've got the Deadly Dispute. We've got Synth. Definitely want Synth. This card is great. So this is Experimental Synthesizer. This is a great draw spell. I was actually playing Boros Boros Synthesizer at the Rags to Riches event, and the deck didn't feel very good, to be quite honest. I know Mengucci took it to a top 8 finish at Poppergeddon, but felt like it did a whole lot of nothing. You're just kind of like looping these cards and like drawing all this stuff, but you just like, it's just a lot of like a lot of dead air, I felt. But the card is really good. You can turn it into a 2/2 when you're out of, resources, and then you draw another card. So definitely strong. Blood Fountain, we're definitely going to want this in the deck too. It might already be in the deck, but let's definitely make sure we got that one. This is going to be under Recursion. And then what other draw effects? We're probably going to want the Pointed Discussion for the blood token. And then, yeah, and maybe there's even a world where if we're not playing the Monarch and the, maybe not playing the Monarch, the Crimson Fleet Commodore is worth playing, but the Thorn is not very aggressive. So the Commodore could see play. The Underdark Explorer and the Vicious Battle Rager definitely, both having evasion and both being very aggressive, are appealing to me in this context here. But maybe we'll lean out of things like the Thorn. So let's go Crimson Fleet Commodore. And then we'll do the Vicious Battle Rager. And we'll do the Underdark Explorer. And these are going to be draw effects as well. You can see I've added some of the cycling creatures in here. I don't know that they're going to end up making the cut. I don't know if this is the right home for this particular build. I've noticed that my aggressive decks don't really have enough room for the Gloomfang Mauler, Twisted Abomination, Troll, Oliphant, this package of things, even though they're quite nice at like ensuring that you hit land drops and ensuring consistency, and the ETBs are good. They're generally very good cards, but they're also, they come at this expense of like having these expensive cards in your deck. So maybe cards like Troll of Khazad-dûm and Oliphant would make the cut simply because they are MDFCs. They're just 1 mana, and they're also 6 to cast. So they're not as much as Gloomfang Mauler. So I think we'll just cut these ones here. The nice thing about Oliphant too is that it can tutor up Dwarven Mine, which produces a 1/1 that we can actually sacrifice. So let's cut these ones. Even the Crag Smasher Yeti can go. We may keep Street Wraith here just because it's another way that we can do that. We'll get rid of the Cyclops. You can see I was building a little bit initially around the cycling, just like having draw spells that are also creatures. Pretty efficient, and we could still look into doing that. But let's move these over into draw as well, because these are draw spells. And where's the other one? Vicious Battle Rager, draw. There we go. Okay, so there's that. Looking pretty good here. We definitely want more though, and we'll have some rocks that can do stuff as well. The Blood Fountain actually does draw us cards as well with the Blood token. And then let's start organizing things by mana cost. So 1 MV. So basically we're going to organize things by the mana value. The Ring Tempt, that's kind of interesting. And the reason we're doing this is because we really want to be cognizant of our mana curve while we're building. Like that sort of 15 1-drops, 10 to 12 2-drops, that kind of thing. We're going to probably be a 35 creature deck. 2 MV. And then we're going to have Dothy Horror is going to be 2 MV, Dothy Slayer. Don't much care that they don't block. We got the Gluttonous Slug, is excellent. That card always gets big. Nezumi Cutthroat, also, this is basically the same thing. We're going to have, let's see. Yeah, where was the other one? There's the Highborn Ghoul. Oh, maybe it doesn't have an E. Highborn Ghoul. Yep. Is it already in there? Oh yeah, we've already got that. Okay, cool. And then in terms of 1 mana stuff, we're going to want to do CMC equals 1, function, evasion, type creature. Cycling is cool, but feels off here. Yeah, I feel really compelled to like explore the creature cycling type stuff, because black and red, you have a lot of it and it's cheap and it's like very efficient to like play a 1 mana creature and then just draw a card off Street Wraith and then draw a card off of like Monstrous Carabid. And so they're all kind of like cards that if we build into what we're doing some form of recursion, then our late game is covered because we just play these big creatures and we beat people up with them. But I don't know. It might take its own. I guess I'm a little like I don't know. I guess I'm a little like it's new territory. So it's working in Boros. It's working in my mono black control and mid range decks. But this is kind of a pretty aggressive deck. So I don't know. Maybe that's even a bigger argument for it because you're cycling for so cheap. It's almost always like cycling for one. And so they are just like very efficient draw spells. They're like cantrips, right? So okay, so Reckoner Raid is really good. We've got cards like the Gold Hound, which I've included here, and the Insolent Neonate. Both of these have the ability to sacrifice. This one has Menace and First Strike, which is pretty interesting. But just having these cards is going to allow us to punch through on boards. Prickly Bogart, having Fear, is great. Shadow Alley Denizen is really good. And this is actually one reason why I would probably want to focus mostly on black creatures, is this allows us to give like unblockability to things over and over and over again. And I think that's pretty strong. Yeah, we could even play like Sturge, where the ability to like sacrifice it and draw a card could be really good for an onboard effect. I really like Stronghold Confessor because when you top deck it when you have it in the early game, it's a 1/1 menace, but late game you just pay more mana for it if you don't have anything else going, and it's a 3/3 menace. Even if it is 4 mana, which is like not great, I like that flexibility. Also works really good with Ninjutsu, but I don't know if we'll be doing that in this deck, so we'll just add this to the sideboard. Unwilling Ingredient is, yeah, 1/1 menace, which, you know, not super high impact, but the ability to sacrifice this knowing that you'll be able to get even more resources out of the graveyard is potentially worth considering as well. Okay, so let's go up to 2. CMC equals 2. And what do we have? Oh, interesting. Bushido. Huh. That's kind of cool. Invite people to block if they want, and then they lose in combat. Yeah, this Ghastly Gloom Hunter is actually one that's been pretty good, but it's a lot better in Rilsa, where you're basically, you know, making this thing into like a massive threat whenever you attack and it gains a ton of life. Glaze Fiend is in the deck. Whenever an artifact enters, we're gonna get +2/+2. The only problem is that a lot of our artifact generation is gonna be on hit, you know, so I'm not certain exactly how often this is going to actually attack with any power. So I think we're going to put this into the sideboard. There's definitely potential for this to be like, you know, like a 6 power flyer. But then there's other times where it's like going to be 0/1. And a lot of times where it'll just be a 2/3, which maybe that's fine. But put it in sideboard. You can see we're building a lot towards black. Goblin Trailblazer could be good too. Flying Vigilance, Marsh Goblins, counts as, let's see, Swamp Walk. Yeah, not that great. We have the Mayhem Patrol here. You know, one of the reasons I like this is that when you blitz, if it dies for any reason, you still draw a card. So you can blitz it, sacrifice it as fodder. It's going to give power. It's got Menace. It does produce a sack trigger. Alex says, Soulbright Flamekin is a card I'm try to keep finding a home for. Do you think it goes here? It gives our late game creatures trample. Yeah, that one takes like 8 mana, I think it is, and you sink it all into it to give everything trample if you've paid, you know, 6 or 8 this way. Maybe. Yeah, I think a lot of our stuff having unblockability or evasion already, though, suggests that we don't probably need the trample. Just kind of my initial thought. Ornithopter of Paradise is going to be good here as a 2-mana ramp card that's also a creature that flies that can like equip onto a Bone Splitter or a Beamtown Beatstick, or, you know, any one of those. And even though we're going to want to use it for mana, sometimes we're just going to want another attacker. And if we can give it any power, then it allows it to swing evasively, which is pretty cool. Rancid Rats is interesting. The Death Touch and the Skulk, pretty cool. Have a bunch of infect stuff here that we're not going to be playing with. When you cast a colorless spell, not good enough. Oh, whenever a land enters the battlefield, give this Intimidate. That's pretty good, because Intimidate is really close to unblockability in most cases. We're definitely playing Vault Scourge. This is a 1-mana card. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. We'll sideboard that for now. If we aren't able to give it Intimidate, then that's going to feel pretty bad. But we have Horsemanship stuff here, and we have Vampire Interloper. Also another creature that can't attack. 2 power, 2/1. I think there's a couple of other cards that we could play that are better than this. There's like a 2 mana, 2/2 that is a 2 mana 2/2 that has Bloodthirst. Yeah, this one right here, the Dusk Hunter Bat. So they have to have been hit with damage. So we play the second main, and then we're able to make a 2/2 with 2/2 flying for 2, which I think is plenty fine. It also has +1/+1 counters on it, and we have the Evolve creature. Is there anything else with Evolve? Oh, Evolve. Let's see if there's anything else with Evolve. It's just this one right here. No, that's too bad. Cool. Okay, so we've got a good start there. The reason I was looking at Evolve was just for any sort of like proliferate shenanigans. We will go up to 3, just curious to see what's up there, but we're not going to do too much in this arena. There's a couple that are good enough. Like, I think Blind Zealot potentially worth playing. Blank Goblin, Ritual on a Sackable Body. I don't think we want that. I don't think we care about the rituals so much. Yeah. We'll take a look at it though. Cadaver Imp potentially. I like Dothy Marauder quite a lot. It's a 3/1 for 3 that is unblockable. It's quite nice. There's a couple of 3 mana 2/2s that can't be blocked basically. There's one in red and one in black, and Dread Warlock, and the other one's like Skirk something. And we could consider running them too. I have Fairy Macabre here, basically saying that if I'm going to run Graveyard Hate, I want it to be on a threat that I can also play. So that's another option. Hagra Constrictor is pretty good. It gives menace to creatures with +1/+1 counters. But we don't have a ton of creatures with counters. Hagra Constrictor is really good in Passageway Seer because we have the Forge and the Throne of the Dead 3 as things that are coming out of the command zone. And so this one gives unblockability to the Passageway Seer as well as anything with the Forge. I do have Cathari Bomber here. I don't know if this is one that we'll actually want because, again, this is like more leaning into like the creature sacrifice. We've got Faye 47. Ooh, a rebuild of the deck. Sick. I haven't played in a minute. Oh, Zanzibar, what's up? Good to see you. Yeah, basically the idea here is that I want to lower the curve quite a bit, and I want to leverage our equipment that make tokens a lot more. And now, you know, compared to when I last built the deck, we have Shiny Impetus, we have Beat Stick, we have Sticky Fingers. We have a lot more ways to make treasure regularly than we did before, and that's really caused me to want to lower the curve. So it's not so much that the previous deck was built wrong, it's that at the time we didn't have the tools to do such a consistent treasure making plan. So Cathari Bomber here is looking a little bit anemic. I do like that this essentially creates like 6 bodies, which is cool, but these bodies, like, I don't really know what we're doing with them. We might be blocking. It is have a lot of triggers. It is evasive, but I don't know. We'll see. We're not going to play Liliana Spectre, even though it's, you know, it's an evasive, you know, 2 power flyer, because discard is really not very good in my experience. Ravenous Scourge is a card I like quite a bit. It's kind of like the second copy of Dothy Marauder, where you're swinging and it's becoming 3 power flyer. There's not a lot of 3 power flyers for 3 in the format, and even though it's a 1/1 when it's blocking, and just when it's sitting out there, it's got 1 toughness. It hits pretty hard in the air. A 3 power flyer ends games. Here's the Skirk Shaman I was talking about before. Can't be blocked except for artifact creatures and red creatures, so it's Intimidate. It's just another Intimidate card. There's this one here. Whenever a creature is put into the graveyard the same turn. Oh, that's terrible. Absolutely trash. We've got Stinkweed Imp. Probably don't want that. Yeah, okay. So that's a pretty good look there. Let's go back to the deck, and we'll start adding cards into their respective slots. So we've got Vault Scourge at 1 mana. We've got Sturge at 1 mana. We've got Shadow Alley Denizen at 1. We've got Insolent Neonate at 1. We've got Prickly Bogart, Goldhound, Ginger Brute also seems good here. Just being able to make it unblockable seems great. Blight Keeper is a card I've been really happy with. The Battlefly Swarm, being able to hold back on defense with Death Touch is great. Dothy Marauder is going to go into our 3 drops. 3 MV. And then I think Ravenous Scourge, just really prioritizing the power, although the unblockability on these is definitely quite interesting, or mostly unblockable to get our triggers. Let's get our Fleshbag Marauder in here as well. We're definitely going to play the Edicts. The Edicts are a lot better here, being able to produce a ton of triggers. So 4 MV. And then we're going to do Mirkwood Bats at 4 MV. We're definitely playing that. Dimir Houseguard hits too many good things to pass up on it. So definitely going to do that. We probably don't do Falconwrath Noble here. Street Wraith could go into the draw, although the life loss is kind of scary. Blind Zealot's significantly better than Skirk Shaman or Dread Warlock because it has the same kind of evasion, but it can also be used to destroy creatures. Did Shambling Ghast make the cut? No, we're not going to do Shambling Ghast, and there's a whole cycle of them. There's like 4 or 5 cards that are 1 mana, and they give either -1/-1, and then there's Festering Zombie, which gives -1/-1 counter. But none of them have built-in evasion, and we're not really here to sacrifice our creatures all the time. We have the ability to do it because we're going to have a lot more of them, and they're not going to be as meaningful in terms of like what they're worth to us. They're like turning on other synergies, and they're always attacking, right? And that's the big thing, is you can play bigger creatures that have higher impact, or you can play smaller creatures that come out right away and they immediately start applying pressure, which turns on our synergies. So I think I prefer that. Sounds like a solid change, especially if aggro is still so popular. Aggro is doing fine. I think it's in this case it's more that I just felt sometimes like the deck was kind of slow, like it would wanted to play a number of rocks and then start playing out these bigger creatures, but there was never really enough to equip to. So it felt like we didn't have enough action. Yo, what's up, Sniff? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, and by the way, because we did do the switch of the video, this is not the original link that I sent out. If you've got anybody who you think would enjoy this, and we've got plenty of people in here, but if you've got anybody who you think would enjoy this, feel free to send them the link and let them know that what we're up to, because all of my posts on Reddit were basically useless because the link is now dead. So just based on the problem I had earlier with the mobile stuff. So I think Blind Zealot could be worth here. The ability to basically have like an onboard kill spell every time we attack is pretty darn cool. So I like that. The Dusk Haunter Bat at 2 I think is going to be good. We also got all these like red and black tempt cards, which are interesting. As long as the tempt is like good at stage 1, I think that's good enough to play. And so I don't know if it necessarily is, but we can talk about that. Cards like Sam's Desperate Rescue are literally just Raise Dead, which is plenty fine. Like 1 mana, get a card from the graveyard is good. The Ring Tempts You is solid. If we got to looting, we're never going to get to stage 4, which is unfortunate. I just don't think we will. Like this Rohirrim Lancer is a 1 mana 1/1 menace. When it dies, you're going to tempt. So putting that on maybe, I don't know. A lot of our cards already have evasion, so this is where it's a little bit awkward. Whereas like some tempt decks will take a card like a Creeping Bloodsucker, which is almost never going to attack, or a Bloodseeker, which won't almost ever attack, and it's going to, give it the ability to attack. But that works in tempt decks where you have that in the command zone. Whereas here, if we play Bloodseeker, it's going to be hard to envision like a world where we're consistently having tempt available for those cards, and so they just won't be able to attack. That being said, they don't always need to attack. Creeping Bloodsucker and Bloodseeker both basically do damage without attacking, and they can do quite a bit more damage than even if they were attacking. So we could talk about playing those. They do powerful things. We've got Breaking the Fellowship. Target creature an opponent controls deals damage equal to its power to another target creature that player controls. Sorcery Speed, like the Tempt maybe, is fine. Claim the Precious is probably the closest to just being like outright playable, along with Sam's Desperate Rescue. Uruk-hai Berserker, fine too. I feel like this is a little lost in the sauce though, so think we might just kind of back out of this because it's yeah, inherited envelope to that one. You know, yeah, I just don't think we're going to be doing temp stuff. In all honesty. Okay. We've got our sweepers, some removals. We've got some more creatures here. I do like the idea of playing Oliphant and Troll because they act as our top end while also being a 1-mana cycler to find our dual land, to find a Dwarven Mine for a creature, although a lot of this deck is actually black. So Dwarven Mine is not going to be reliable. Maybe this is just finding the dual, or it's finding a mountain, mainly because it's a 1-mana cycler. Troll of Khazad-dûm is going to be the best one. Finding Witch's Cottage is great. So yeah, let's keep those. Reckoner Raid is our other 1-mana creature here. And then we have these ones over here, which I think we can leave out for now. How many creatures do we have? 45 in total, but that includes all of these weird cycling cards. So let's cut these weird ones here. I don't think Falkenrath Noble is going to make the cut here. It does carry a cranial plating, but Sniff says, yeah, I think Tempt isn't good enough for Mayhem Devil. He has too many cards to run. Yeah, I mean, already Mayhem Devil is one of the hardest decks to build. Like there's just like 500 good cards for the deck and a lot of different ways you could take it. I think the Blood Treasure route, I do think that that's the most like resilient and the most competitive that I've seen. I don't really like the first day of class builds going into combo, even though you have the outlet in the command zone. But there's just a lot of directions to be pulled. You could even do like a creature-based one. Trouble with the creature is that you just get pulled in these weird directions where you have like A, B, but you don't have C, or you have C and B, but you don't have A. And I don't really like that. Dothy Jackal here has another destroy target blocking creature. Probably not good enough. Ornithopter of Paradise, probably good enough. It's kind of funny because Ornithopter is like a mana rock and a creature, but the creature needs to be given equipment for it to do anything. So I think with the big fat cyclers, you can probably run Exhume. We could. The only trouble is Exhume is giving everybody else so much. It's like a 3 for 1. You know, like we're spending a card to get 1 back and everybody else is getting 1 back too. So I wouldn't do Exhume, but I could see myself running like Summon Undead, maybe. But again, Summon Undead's 5 mana, and when you cast Summon Undead, you're only getting a 1 mana discount on one of these creatures, which I don't really like as much. I think it is more like Reaping the Graves, Blood Fountain, maybe like, I don't know, there's a couple of other ones that you can sacrifice. Wander in Death is pretty good because you can cycle it for 2, or you can get 2 cards out of the graveyard for 3. So I like those 3 a lot. Death Denied, but Death Denied tends to go in like more of a control deck because it's just bigger mana. It's more expensive. Let's go back and look at the original list. We've got these ones here. Do we have Feed the Swarm? We don't. We're going to add Feed the Swarm. Get this one into removal. We may not end up playing these stamina cards. We'll see. And we're going to do... So Makeshift Munitions gets like actually a lot better here. So I like that. Terminate. We're definitely going to play Victim of Night. We probably won't play the Briarblade Adept. And we probably will still play Oubliette, as nasty as that card is. So we'll do... do we have Grasp? Darkness. It'd be nice if our removal mostly did damage to creatures in face, but that's a pretty tall ask. Makeshift Munitions. Gonna go into removal, and then we'll have... and we're gonna load up on Edict creatures as well, because the Edicts are gonna allow us to just produce a ton of triggers, while also potentially upgrading smaller creatures into bigger ones, which is pretty darn cool if we're playing cheaper stuff. Yeah, we got Feed. Oh yeah, we're going to play Battle Rage, Blessing, and Offer Immortality. These cards are both like modal sweepers, as well as protection. So I like them quite a lot. It does draw us out of the direction of Grave Flickers, and we have lots of good ETBs, but these are just, they do both, and that's just too good. These cards like end the game on the spot pretty hard. You just like mow everything down with Death Touch. So yeah, definitely like that. We could consider running even more of these potentially. Let's cut some of these other ones. What's our 1 mana creatures looking like? We have 12, 7, and 4. So that's a pretty good number there. Good draw stuff here. A lot of modifications. What cards are we cutting then? So let's cut, I think Noble is a good card, but I don't think it's what we want here. Yeah, I don't think it's what we want here. Considering Mayhem Patrol under considering Fire Shrine Keeper, 3 damage to up to 2 target creatures for 8. 8 is so much mana, and Menace is not evasive enough for me to maybe justify this, so I think we'll just put it under considering. We can revisit it. Dread Warlock, considering Skirk Shaman, considering Cathari Bomber, considering Fairy Macabre is probably good enough. Oliphant is, or sorry, Street Wraith. I think Street Wraith 5 MV, and it's also going to be draw. I think Street Wraith right now with the, if you have life gain in your deck, is particularly free. Mayhem Devil doesn't have a ton of that. So Street Wraith may be a cut, but it works really nicely with the Reaping the Graves type stuff because you can just freely cycle it. If we're more aggressive, it's getting us to our draws faster. These ones are going to be hashtag 6 MV. And these are also going to be, yeah, I guess they do more, but yeah. And then we'll do 6 MV. We're not going to have a whole lot of stuff at that cost. I don't know whether these are going to make the cut, so we'll just do these into considering for the time being. We'll revisit them because I think the Grave Flicker effects are quite good right now. So you can see we're at 68 cards. Almost all of them are good, and we don't have any mana rocks in the deck yet. So that's one of the things that we're going to have to kind of contend with. You can see our slots are already wildly occupied. We've got Pseudonym. Welcome. Glad to have you in the chat, friend. I built Shirai the other day. Shirai. Yep. Was interesting experience. Yeah, Shirai is interesting. It's there, some looping you can do there. A lot of the creatures that have like good ETBs that you want to reuse end up being discard creatures, which is pretty awkward because discard kind of like puts the onus and the responsibility on you to like handle problems at the table because you're discarding everybody's interaction. Like most people, if they're going to discard a card, are going to discard lands first, maybe extraneous threats, then removal and counter spells, and then they'll keep the draw spells so that they can find more stuff and push past. And so Shirai, like discarding everybody's cards, like it seems like mass discard has like its best home when you're actually the combo deck, because then that's like a form of counterspell. But I don't really like it when it's just in a mid-range deck. And I've done a bunch of experimenting with it where it just was like, I don't know, it felt weird. Felt bad when somebody comboed off and nobody had any answers to it because I discarded them. It just becomes pretty oppressive, but definitely still worth exploring. It's also 5 mana, which is a lot. I feel like Sir Conrad might be kind of where you want to be, where instead of reanimating things, you're just like using them in the graveyard for triggers that apply more pressure and whatnot. Yeah, I made myself a target and people got salty. Yeah, discard has that effect too. That's the other problem with discard is that like when somebody is discarding your hand, if you're gonna lose all these cards, a lot of times what people will do is they will spend their cards to keep their cards. And the spending of it might mean a counterspell or it might mean removal, right? Like if I can trade my 1 removal spell in hand so that I don't discard my entire hand, a rational person will do that. And so when you're discarding everybody's stuff, they're all like making that same choice in their head. There's 3 people looking at you and saying like, if you're going to discard my hand, I'm going to kill your creature, which stops your looping, right? If you were drawing cards, that would be better, but there's not a whole lot of like cards you can draw with Shirai. There's only a few. It kind of needs more of them. Okay. Put that under edicts. Cards like Blind Zealot and Dothy Marauder might not end up making the cut, even Fairy Macabre, just because like we're going to be so strapped for slots here. Street Wraith might not make the cut either. Our draw spells are pretty good here. We're pretty set on this. So let's do sack O draw O2. So another one, oh, you know, the funny thing is it 2? Yeah, you have to spell out 2. If you do 2 when you're looking for draw cards, they always list it as something different. So we have Costly Plunder. We got all these ones here. Infernal Idol. Merciless Resolves 3 mana. It's too much. Nasty End is only a draw 2, sack a creature. So it's basically Altar's Reap, which is this one right here. With the possibility that if you sack a legendary creature, you draw 3. Now, the only way to make something legendary that's not in your command zone is going to be Tempt with the Ring. The Ring Bearer does become legendary, so that is something to keep in mind. But you can see we've got most of the efficient draw spells at this point. Draw 2. Interesting that it didn't show... I wonder why it didn't show... Oh, because exploit is a has reminder text on it. That's why. So Vulturous Aven is the other one. You can sack a creature and draw 2. The only thing is, like, I think we're generally speaking going to want to sacrifice artifacts mostly if we can. So Vulturous Aven's kind of funny, but it is a 2/3, carries a cranial plating like a boss, draws 2 cards, maybe turns an evasive 1/1 or some menace 1/1 into a 4/4 flyer. I think this is probably fine. Probably fine to do. With all the blood... Oh, yeah, we got to look at blood tokens here. So let's look at what we got. I think we're going to probably want to play... We're definitely playing Belligerent Guest. Trample is not considered evasion in their coding, and so we're going to have to go back and look for all that stuff. Belligerent Guest making blood tokens every turn is very good. Blood Crazed Socialite probably makes... the problem is that it's a 3/3 menace that makes a blood token, and you don't really have a lot of blood tokens in this deck. That's one thing you'll notice if you play it, is that blood is like a little bit more rare than treasure. Treasure is everywhere. Blood is like limited to this one set where they had it, and so it's mostly a 3/3 menace that makes a blood token once, and then it eats the blood token to become a 5/5. Which, if you have a ceremonial knife, is like a self-reinforcing thing. It's pretty powerful, and I've definitely done it before. We'll add it to the sideboard. We're definitely want Bloodfell Caves. A little bit of life gain doesn't hurt. If you draw your second card each turn, +1/+1 first strike. Now, with blood tokens, we actually can do madness stuff. We can also do unearth stuff. Here's another one, 2/2 for 2 with first strike. When it dies, create a blood token. Probably good enough for what we want to do. Because it does have the sort of evasion of first strike. Bloody Betrayal. We're definitely playing this card. With any sort of like sack effect, this is very strong. Creeping Bloodsucker is also interesting. We don't have a way for it to attack, but it basically attacks for 3 every turn without having to attack, which is great. Oh, this Bogarden Lancer is interesting. It's 2/2 for 2 with flanking, because we're going to Bloodthirst. We'll play it post-combat with flanking, which means it's kind of like a 3/3, so it's harder to block. We could put this one in the sideboard. Falconwrath Celebrants is probably just too good. Like 2 blood tokens is very strong. And then we have like some really bad blood token makers like Lacerate Flesh and Grizzly Ritual. If you ever want to play like Mayhem Devil in a casual sense, it's pretty hard because the deck can be very oppressive. But like, I would say it's like your gameplay that changes. You like ping people in the face mostly. And these Lacerate Flesh and Grizzly Rituals are ways to get lots and lots of blood tokens. Like if you do 4 damage to a 1/1, you're going to get 3 blood tokens this way. And this one makes 2 for 6. It's a lot of mana. Pointed Discussion, also going to play here. Voldaren Epicure is interesting. It makes a blood token, but it's only a 1/1. So this is the kind of card where like Tempt would actually make sense with a card like this, or Creeping Bloodsucker or Bloodseeker, where it doesn't have innate evasion, but it's doing something else that we like either applying pressure to the table or being producing a blood token, things like that. So, but the thing is, the Tempt cards are like you kind of want to play all of them. It's a very parasitic effect. So we could also look at Voldaren Epicure as just like fodder, right? We could look at this as like it's a 1/1. It pings everybody for 1. It produces a blood token, and then we sack it or we block. So maybe it's good enough there. And then Vampire's Kiss is just not good enough. This is like 2 mana, 2 blood tokens. The fact that it only deals to 1 player is what kills it. If this hit everybody for 2, it'd be a totally different story. It's kind of reading like 4 mana, discard 2, draw 2, which is, that's basically like Unexpected Windfall or something like that. I guess that is one way to look at it. We'll put it in the sideboard, reconsider that one. And then we're going to look at Undying or Unearth. Because all these ones are... Unearth is a pretty good mechanic in this deck with the blood tokens and everything. First Sphere Garganta is really, really good when you can blood token into the graveyard, because you draw a card and then you're going to unearth it and draw another card, and it's going to be this like hasty 5/5 that only costs you like 4 mana, right? Because you had to blood token into the graveyard, but you pay it in installments. So it's really like 1 mana to put it into the graveyard, draw a card, and then you're going to get the 3 mana 5/4. So I like this quite a bit. The only problem is that for 6 mana, very unappealing. So we're just going to have to look and see how many blood tokens we're creating and whether that's feasible. Scourge Devil, also pretty cool if we can unearth it, because it's going to give all of our creatures an anthem. It doesn't give us any card advantage though. So Scrapwork Mutt, again, all this is really determined on whether we have like a lot of blood tokens. Scrapwork Rager is not nearly as good as First Sphere Garganta. So yeah. And then Viscera Seer has the ability to send itself to the graveyard to unearth from there. So yeah, I think it's mainly the Garganta that we want. And we're at 78 cards in deck, so we're going to have to make like a lot of cuts. And that's one of the things that you just always encounter with this deck, is that you've got lots of stuff that needs to go. Like probably, like Troll has the ability to get the Witch's Cottage, which is really good. It also gets duels, whereas the Oliphant is getting mountains, and most of our stuff, this is like looking like a mono black deck that happens to have red in it. So Oliphant probably doesn't make the cut, but it is still a 1 mana cycler that's just like getting, our dual lands, right? So hard to say. Basically none of this gets cut. This is all really good. These Edict creatures are strong as well. These modifications don't get cut. Our removal is at 10 right now, and we don't have Oubliette, so we're probably going to want to get Oubliette in there. We have our sweepers and our protection, and then we have these creatures here, which we've just added. So like Ornithopter of Paradise is probably going to go. It's quite likely that we won't actually have any mana rocks in this deck, just based on like how the math is coming out. It's going to be like mostly... it's going to be mostly just like making your land drops and then playing a lower curve. So a lot of the decks that I've been playing lately just have a lower curve, and then they don't make, they're always making their land drops, but they're not like ramping, right? Which is what the previous deck wanted to do. And we still do have some expensive stuff here, but it's like the curve here is much different. Like let's compare the curves here. Like this curve right here, which is kind of looking like a bell curve. And then we have this one right here, which is looking like a ski slope. That's exactly the way we want it. I need to use the restroom really quick because, again, I jetted over here from work real fast, and I'll get back with you all in a second, so hold on. Okay, and we are back. All right, so, yep, nice curve there. You can see it's mostly black right now. Okay, so we've got the pointed discussion, which is going to go under draw. It might be that the blood token synergy isn't something that, is as prevalent in this, because there's just not a lot of, like, blood making things. It's like there's a couple, but... Like Belligerent Guest is really, really good. Falconwrath Celebrants is plenty good. The Blood Petal Celebrant, I think, is actually going to be good because the first strike paired with the equipment means this is going to trade up quite well. And then when it dies, it's going to give us a blood token. And the Voldaren Epicure, probably good enough. I mean, you know, in terms of the philosophy of fire, where you try to measure like the ratio of how much mana you spent on something for how much damage it deals, if it deals, you know, 1 to everybody and produces a blood token, that's probably fine, and then it's going to turn into more cards later on because we'll sacrifice it to something. Creeping Bloodsucker probably doesn't make the cut here. And if we were to like compare this deck to other black aggressive decks, one of the differences that you're going to see is that a lot of black aggressive decks are going to play a ton of creatures that drain everybody when they ETB. So we're inherently still a mid-range deck because we aren't as aggressive as that. We have an aggressive creature base that's full of unblockable creatures. We're making all these treasure tokens, but the purpose of playing all these treasure makers is so that we can essentially like control the board with our command zone. So it's kind of like our command zone is mid-rangey and sort of controlling, and then our creature base is very aggressive, which I've been doing a lot of that with decks lately, where they're where you have a command zone that's very different from the actual deck itself, like a very aggressive creature base in blue paired with Elrond, which is all about, you know, filtering through cards, or Golem, you know, although Golem, the command zone's pretty aggressive too. Gotta block the light coming in from the side here. Okay, there we go. A little less glare on my face. Cool. So Vulturous Haven we probably don't need. We'll throw it to considering. First Sphere Garganta, like breaking parity is nice. It's really nice, but we have to look at how many blood tokens we're making. We have Bloody Betrayal. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8 with the Insolent Neonate because it's basically a blood token on a creature. So we have 8 blood token effects, and only 2 of them are repeatable. So that's like asking a lot in my mind of First Sphere Garganta, because if we don't get those things, if we don't have any of those effects, or say we have to use them early on to get what we need, then this is going to just feel like a 6 mana card, and I just don't think it's going to make the cut. Creeping Bloodsucker, good, but like, I just don't think it's good enough here. And then we've got all of these cards in here as well, which just are not going to make the cut. The ingredient is basically a better... Is this just a better, like, Goldhound, or maybe a better... It seems actually like this would be exactly where we want to be. A creature that we are happy to sacrifice. It has evasion. 1 mana value. Drop this in the main deck. So we got Skull Crusher. I'm thinking of making Old Man Willow for PDH. Very cool. Old Man Willow, 4 mana Golgari. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of lands in play. Every time you attack, you can sacrifice a creature or a token and give a creature -2/-2. And -2/-2 is quite the machine gun for combo creatures. So that's pretty cool. And it's going to grow into a larger threat. The nice thing, too, is that in black, you get all these Grave Flicker effects that essentially it goes to the graveyard and it comes back. And those are the most efficient protection. And to get the sufficient protection you need to make kind of, it's not Voltron, but you're going to be doing a lot of commander damage. To get enough of those to like sufficiently protect your threats, you have to go into Grave Flickers. And the problem with Grave Flickers is that if you work hard to put a lot of like auras or equipment or enchantments on your commander, then you lose those. Or if you have counters, for example, like Grave Flickers don't feel very good in Passageways here. Even though you get the ETB still, it still comes back as just a 2/2. And then it'll become a 3/3. So yeah, Old Man Will is cool. Definitely a sweet commander. Okay, and then we've got the land, but let's just move this to considering so we can get a sense of how many lands we're going to want, because I think it's going to be a 35, 36 land deck, 30, probably 35, maybe 36. I know when I played Real Surreal just recently at the RIW Hobbies event, the tournament in Detroit, I had a lot of land problems in Real Surreal where I just had a couple of games where I just didn't hit my land drops properly after drawing a lot of cards, and that felt bad because I don't play Mana Rocks in Rilsa anymore. I just play 35 lands, and I think it needs a 36th. We don't have Siphon Mind in here. It could be that the whole Reaping the Graves plan is like not good. The thing with Reaping the Graves though is that like this is the biggest draw spell in black for like the least amount of mana, right? To like get our creatures back, and we have 38 of them currently. And but when we're not doing the cycling thing, that if we have this in hand, then it feels pretty bad. So I think we'll leave this one out for now. We'll keep that in the sideboard. And if we're not playing that, then I think we're definitely cutting back on the troll and the Oliphant. Although the troll, it's hard because the troll is very good. It's very good. 6/5 triple menace is amazing. Finds Witch's Cottage. You know, you can bring it back with Blood Fountain, Mortuary Mire, which is, yeah, just a lot of different ways to bring it back. We don't have Sign in Blood or Night's Whisper in here, and we could easily play those as just generically good draw spells. It's possible that Dimir Houseguard isn't, it's very good. It finds the Initiative, it finds Edicts, it finds Mirkwood Bats, it finds Siphon Mind if we were playing it, it finds Thorn of the Black Rose if we were playing it, but we're not playing those, so I'm not sure. I'm choosing Crimson Fleet Commodore for the Monarch, and I'm wondering whether this should just be like Sign in Blood and Night's Whisper, because we're attacking every turn, and we will get the Monarch back with our evasive stuff, but it's only draw one, and it's not a 5/2 that's going to swing once and die. So I think we're going to put this into considering, and let's just add in Sign in Blood and Night's Whisper. We don't even have Gary in the deck either, so Gary's going to be really good here. Grey Merchant of Asphodel. This is going to be under 5 MV. These are going to be under draw. You can see our draw spells are really efficient here. Like mostly 2 mana and 1 mana, which is appealing, very appealing. Okay, so Dimir Houseguard's starting to look like we can throw this into considering. Blind Zealot is another removal spell. Should add that in there. And the question is, do I like this over Dothy Marauder? And my temptation is to say yes. It's a very slow effect, but it is just something that I can do, right? So for 1 less power, we're able to turn this into a kill spell. And it's mostly the same level of unblockability. We could also cut like Nezumi Cutthroat, for example. This one's probably among the worst of them. Intimidate and Fear, basically the same thing. So this one just can't block. Question is, do we want the blood token when this dies more? For the fact that First Strike is actually not evasion, probably. But I mean, when you pair that up with equipment, the First Strike is pretty dang good. It's just that it can just get chumped. So I like these cards that are just unblockable a lot. Let's look at CMC equals 2/0 Fear type creature. See what other cards there are with Fear. None that we care about. What about Intimidate? And then we just have the Surakar Marauder. Targ Nar also looks really fun for PDH. Yeah, I think both of those are, well, actually, so the Old Man Willow has more potential for cPDH, which is what we focus on here. The Targ Nar, I think more decidedly casual. The other thing you could consider for Old Man Willow is instead of Old Man Willow, you could play Skyfisher Spider, which is actually the same mana cost. It has a very powerful life gain effect. And Skyfisher Spider also destroys any non-land permanent instead of only being -2/-2. And if you Grave Flicker it, you can blow up a lot of things with it. So if you are interested in that sort of Golgari control, I think that's what I would look at, would be like Skyfisher Spider, or if you want to play control as well, Mayhem Devils, or sorry, Witherbloom Apprentice. But if you're playing Witherbloom Apprentice, I usually point people towards Thrall Parasite instead, because it's just better at the control thing. Surakar Marauder. I guess the question is, like, how often are we going to hit our land drops? Because if we don't, then we can't attack, whereas the flying is going to be more consistent, I think. So, good. A lot of, we've got Menace, 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 Menace. Okay, good. We don't have too much, which is nice. So for cuts, we could cut out of this 3 slot. I mean, even all 3 of these could potentially go. That would take us down to 32 creatures. Troll. I hate it, but I think it does need to go. I think we'll just play enough lands. I mean, the other option too, and this is a possibility, is you could play... You can always look at the 1-mana ones and say, this is an Ash Barrens, right? And then you just don't need to play a land. So we could, it's like the mathematics do work out on that, that if you have Troll of Khazad-dûm and Oliphant in hand, or Oliphant in hand, and you have 1, and maybe you have 2 lands, then you technically have 3, you just have to pay 1. It's kind of like a tap land, right? So it's a tap land. I think that might be worth it just to keep the threats high. Jared says, how much should we value our creatures in this version of Mayhem Devil? Do we care about being able to use Dimir Houseguard as a sack outlet? So Dimir Houseguard as a sack outlet is not something that I've ever used before. I've talked about it a lot as being a good thing to do, but my experience is that I've never done it. So, you know, it's like, it's evasive. It has fear as a creature. It's just a 4-mana, 2/3, mostly unblockable. It does a lot of things. It's just that we already have like a game plan that we're following, and I don't know whether that one makes the cut. And finding Mirkwood Bats is perhaps one of the best things that it does. Oh, and we need cranial plating in here too. Yeah, definitely want cranial plating. Cranial plating will be very strong here. This is going to be under, let's see, go up. Up. Come on, Moxfield. You got it. You got it. All right, there we go. Modifications. Nice. Parasitic Impetus could go. I really like these in aggressive decks, but Parasitic Impetus is perhaps the worst of them. It does hurt the player that, you know, has this on it, but Skullcrusher says, Skyfisher looks really fun, but because most of my LGS doesn't play PDH, I'm trying to stick to uncommon legendary creatures for casual play. Got it. Cool. Yeah. In that case, in terms of legends, yeah, your options get a lot narrower when you play legends, unfortunately. I think that's one of the beauties. It's really one of the best things about this format, is that we can play, you know, when we don't just have to focus on legends, we get like nearly 5,000 commander options. And when you're playing Pauper Commander, but with only the legends, you're actually a really small number of commanders. So I totally understand what you're talking about. You want a deck that can go back and forth. The trouble there too is then you actually start looking at like the only commanders that can really do that are a very small number of them that can actually tango with like any sort of like high power pod, like Tatiova, some sort of Abdel deck. Gut would work, Rilsa, but then yeah, your selection is very small of anything that's doing something powerful. So, and I'm not sure that -2/-2 would actually be useful in like a high powered pod. So we got Mr. Pendulum saying most people are cool with me pulling out any PDH deck. That's exactly right. So that's a really good point, Pendulum, and that's something that I do all the time. I just go up and I say, hey, do you guys mind if I play my PDH deck? And I've literally never had anybody who had a problem with it. Yeah, yeah. You just rule zero them. Yeah, Clay, good to see you, man. Glad to have you here. Um, so I would just say like rule zero it. Like playing PDH with only legends is really, really limiting. It's really, really limiting. And like I said, I've never had anybody upset with me playing a non-legend um, PDH deck because they look at it and they say, "Oh, this is like, it's like underpowered, so it's fine." And what they don't realize is that like cPDH decks are, you know, can be like high power to like upper high power decks. You know, I win most of my games playing cPDH decks against, you know, uh, high power commander decks, um, like over 50%. Um, so yeah, I would just say rule zero it. Yeah. Um, oh, we don't have the other cards here either. We need Reckless Fireweaver, and we need Ingenious Artillerist. And then each O damage type creature. Plus, you have the gratification of shocking all your friends. Exactly. I mean, yeah, like most people when I sit down and like play a PDH deck and then I like wipe the floor with them, it's a pretty big selling point. So if you want your friends to get into it, start slaughtering them with cPDH decks, and they'll be impressed. And then they'll realize, wow, this commander deck where I had to buy like Anointed Procession and Doubling Season, like I could actually just not, and I could pocket 80% of the money and just build like 4 cPDH decks and play whatever I want, whenever I want, for a really tiny amount of money. And it's very powerful. So looking for other cards that ping everybody. It'd be really fun to play Dranith Stinger in like an aggressive, Rakdos deck where you're playing like cycling creatures over big draw spells. So instead of playing like Night's Whisper, you play the monstrous Carabid. I kind of wonder what that would look like. It feels like a pivot right now, and I don't know if I want to pivot right now, but I'm definitely getting a heads up from the universe here that that you could just not play. You could leave the world of like Night's Whisper and Sign in Blood and just play 1 mana cycling creatures that you can also just cast. Like it's the same rate. It's 1 mana for 1 draw, but it's like also a creature. Disciple of the Vault could also be good if you're looking for pingers. Yeah, Disciple of the Vault, it only hits 1 player, but it is anytime anyone sacrifices or anytime any artifact goes to the graveyard. It doesn't really attack, but it does do a lot of damage. I mean, it's a lot of damage for sure. But I fear that it kind of requires everything to be happening. I don't know. What do you all think about this? So if we go, let's look at cycling, okay? Cycling, type creature. So the last time I did this thought exercise with Boros in Shadowfax and in Mono Black with Thrall Parasite and in Rakdos with Cardur Doomscourge, the results were really impressive, and it's like being integrated into a lot of my decks. So I'm kind of interested in this. Like, what if we had, specifically like replacing Sign in Blood and Night's Whisper with a card like Desert Ceradon, or the other one would be, and mainly looking for ones that draw a card, like Horror of the Broken Lands would be another one, Lurching Rot Beast, Monstrous Carabid, Oliphant because it's a 1 mana cycler, even Quakefoot Cyclops being 2, but you're also getting something that can't be blocked every turn, or can't be blocked. These are just like castable cards as well. Skullcrusher says, would you recommend any cPDH commanders for me? I like the Stompy Control, but I'm always up for new themes. Stompy Control. That sounds like midrange to me. And if you're looking for midrange, you're come to the right place. It seems like I'm the only person actively pushing midrange in cPDH. There's other people too, but it's like it's a small number, and consensus seems to be that it's not performing well in tournament scenes, even though I'm getting results with it in my games in just random lobbies and also in tournaments. But But I love Midrange. I think it's very good. Just takes knowing the format and building a deck that does the thing well. For control, I would say Thrall Parasite is pretty premium. The deck has answers to almost everything. It gains a lot of life. It possums really well. People don't kill your commander because it's 1 mana and you have 12 to 13 rocks in the deck, so it feels just really like card disadvantage to kill a Thrall Parasite, and it's not ending the game on the spot. So you get a lot of possum equity while also buffering your life total and slowly whittling people down. If you want to do something more splashy, you can play Conductor of Cacophony or Crypt Rats, but both of those have the problem of being like, everybody is looking at that and saying like, I can't let that happen because it's going to wipe my entire board. Like Conductor of Cacophony is scary. Crypt Rats is scary too. Both of those are like must counter creatures. So I prefer the Thrall over that. You could also play Gary, but Gary is also pretty scary. And I think that when you compare Gary and Thrall Parasite, the difference is that Thrall Parasite, you pay 1 mana and you always cast it on turn 1. And by the time you've paid 3 mana into other spell or 4 mana into other spells, you've gained as much life as you would have drained and gained from Gary. Dargo Armix could be an option, although if I was playing Armix, I would highly recommend playing Essior with it, because if you want to build around Armix so that you're actually killing things every turn, the problem is that Armix just it's the same problem. Like you're gonna kill something every turn, and people don't like that because yeah, if you're a combo player and you see that happening, you're like, well, my combo cards are gonna die, so this thing needs to get countered. It's like my counter spell traded for my creature not dying. So I like Essior with that. And I would play Essior over Ghost as well, because you really don't need Ghost for Armix to be good. Armix reads discard a card. Like it reads turn any card in my hand into a kill spell, and Ghost getting that back is like not necessary for Armix to be good. I would just rather play built-in protection with Essior so that I can continue to Armix every turn. So what would it look like if instead of playing like just straight draw cards, what if we played these cycling cards where early on we just cycle them into the graveyard really efficiently, and we're just like moving through our deck really quickly for cheap. It fills our curve, it's uncounterable, and then later on we use the recovery to get them back, and we do that in kind of a radical way. Like what if we replaced, as a thought experiment, what if we replaced cards, so like we already got rid of Crimson Fleet Commodore, so we don't have the Monarch in here, like Sign in Blood, Night's Whisper, there could even be like Ren's Resolve and Reckless Impulse. If the cards are still 1 mana, Reckless Impulse and Ren's Resolve both read 2 mana draw 2, except when you hit removal spells, and that doesn't feel very good because then you kind of have to use the removal speed and removal spell and it's heads up. So as long as it's like 1 mana cyclers, these are as good as these. They just take up more slots, right? They take up 2 slots apiece, basically, if you want to have the same amount of draw, the same volume of draw. But they're just castable. You like later on, you just like cast your Desert Ceradon. Here's my 6/4. Or maybe you need a removal spell, so you cycle away and you get another one. Or early on, you do that. Yeah, so yeah, Clay, it's definitely it's funny. So cognitively, I'll explain what's happening right now. We've been going down one path, and there's this other path that I've been thinking about a lot, and I've been wanting to apply it to decks, and it's scary. Going into new territory is scary. Just like complete honesty on that. Let's get these in order first. With all these creatures too, Impact Tremor starts to look pretty good. Although, you're making artifacts every single turn. You're not necessarily playing a creature every turn. But Impact Tremors does do a lot of damage, and the fact that we get it is really good. So we'll do that. Pestilence and Crypt Rats are kind of interesting. Like these cards are traditionally very good in mono black, and they're good in aggressive as well as like they're good in almost every deck that you play black in. But the problem is that if we're lowering the curve, we are killing a lot of our own stuff. And we don't have a lot of ways to make our stuff bigger because we don't have the forge in the command zone and because our commander is just a 3/3. So I like Pestilence in this deck more as a burn spell and a game-ending card, and a Crypt Rats more as a game-ending card than I do as a sweeper, right? Because it kills so much of our stuff. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to actually not play Pestilence, and we're going to... Crypt Rats is like a card that we can get back and reuse, but like these are selective. These are like cast Mayhem Devil, offer Immortality, or maybe somebody goes to kill it and then we protect it and then we kill a bunch of stuff. So what are some other cards that do Indestructible at type instant? Because we've got the one that makes the token as well. Orcish Medicine, Lifelink, or Indestructible. We've got Professor's Warning, Rush of Vitality. Oh, Rush of Vitality is Lifelink and Indestructible. So the question is Orcish Medicine... Maybe the lifelink isn't like what's as important here. Because it's really, we're playing these as sweepers. Without Weakness also cycles, but it's nice to have Indestructible. The Amass is probably better than the lifelink, and the power isn't super important because we're responding to removal with these cards. These are like Punisher cards where somebody goes to do something to us and we're like, protect it, fuck everybody up. You know what I mean? I think Orcish Medicine's pretty good there. And we'll just do three of them. Because we don't need more than 3 sweepers in this deck. We're still like pretty proactive. I think we can cut Blind Zealot. And we can cut Dothy Marauder. And we can cut Ravenous Scourge. I like those cards, but we really want to focus on this right here. This is what's important. I would love to have more 2-drops and even more 1-drops if we could. But I don't think we're going to have space for it. And we're at 69 cards right now. We do need to keep cutting, which makes the cycling thing seem kind of dubious because like I said before, to get the same number of cards, you need to play twice as many slots for them. I wonder if that home for that building of that kind of a deck would be something like Scarland Thrinax, right? Let's pull that one up on screen here. So Scarland Thrinax is a Aristocrats commander. Is there anything else? ID equals Jund, rarity, uncommon type creature. There's one other, right? That makes tokens. But basically, if you had 3 colors, then you would get an enormous number of cyclers. And then you would actually... Oh, there's more. So this one makes something have to block, so it's kind of a kill spell. This one ramps a little bit. Has Indestructible as long as it entered the battlefield this turn. Not that great. Makes Sapperlings. Not that great. This one makes 3 1/1s. Oh, Mr. Orfeo. Oh. Yeah. That's the home for it. Holy shit. Okay. For another time, we should definitely do a Mr. Orfeo the Boulder creature cycling deck where we play almost all creatures, replace all the draw effects with creatures, because a lot of these creatures are really big, and my heuristic for Mr. Orfeo is that you only want to play creatures that have 4 power or more, because then they hit for 8, and that's a lot of damage. But that would be sweet. And then you play cards like Reaping the Graves, Blood Fountain, Wander in Death, Death Denied, maybe even like Font of Return, Unsealed in Necropolis, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's super cool. Okay. Anywho, we're gonna come back to that one. Parasitic Impetus is probably the worst of these, just because like it's not really producing a token. It's very high value, but you know, sorcery speed. We're probably not the one getting attacked anyways because we are aggressive. So we're kind of like we're applying a lot of pressure. So like we're doing the Lord's work in a sense by attacking the people that need to be attacked. Parasitic Impetus says you don't have a choice in that. You just got to do it. Maybe Orcish Medicine isn't something we need. Having 2 sweepers would be fine, just with Battle Rage Blessing and Offer Immortality, because these ones do both. This is kind of like just a little extra on top, so we'll throw this one in considering. Impact Tremors, Parasitic Impetus are both like on the board. You can see that with like less removal spells and less sweepers, like we are relying a little bit harder on Mayhem Devil for removal, but I think that's okay because we're going to be making a lot more treasures in general. We're going to be getting out early. We're going to be making more treasures and just going. And you can see our curve here. Wow, very nice. Look at that. It's like a ski slope. You get off the lift right here. You go up the slope a little bit, and then you drop it in. Okay. It does seem a shame to not play Reaping the Graves in a deck with 30 or more creatures, but I think that our slots are just a little too choked to do that. Because we need to cut like 4 cards, 3 to 4 cards. And it feels like they got to be creatures, but that's kind of not great. Do we want Ren's Resolve, Reckless Impulse, Sign in Blood, Night's Whisper, all of those? Like point of discussion, making a blood token seems relevant. We really do want to have blood tokens in the deck. We don't have a ton of them. The blood token thing is like less consistent because there's just not that many of them. There's only 2 that actually consistently make them. So your Ceremonial Knife is pretty important, and your and the Belligerent Guest are going to be kind of your pretty dang powerful cards in the deck for what they do to enable the blood treasure thing. Bone Splitter is going to be good. Thieving Tools is going to give unblockable to everything, including our Mayhem Devil, which is cool. And it makes a treasure, so that's good. Oh, you know, there's also Gilded Pinions, which makes a treasure when it ETBs, then it gives something flying. That seems pretty good. Giving flying to like a Slum Reaper, a Chain Devil, a Fleshbag Marauder, Mayhem Devil, even a Celebrance if they have blockers. Being able to give it to a Belligerent Guest if we can't get in, or an Artillerist. And it's making a treasure. That seems good. Skullcrusher asks, what are your top cPDH commanders to play? That's a great question. Let's pull up a quick look at my compendium here. So when you say top, and you can clarify and ask it a different way if you'd like, I'm going to talk about my favorites and my preferences. I think in terms of top commanders, what the internet is going to tell you is that it's Gut, TPI, Abdel, Gretchen, you know, those 4. But I think that there are way more good decks out there than that, and good in a tournament sense. Like they're good decks. So I really like Third Path Iconoclast. I'm biased, of course, because I'm sort of the one that's been pushing this one forward. But it's a Curiosity mid-range deck. It's kind of a reactive mid-range. You're blocking quite a bit, drawing a lot of cards. Powerful draw spells. You have the Curiosity combo. Let's see, where is it listed? Here. So Ophidian Eye, drawing card when you do damage. Tandem Lookout paired with any one of these pingers is very good. So I like this deck a lot. Thrall Parasite for control is just one of my favorite decks I've ever played because it's really kind of like the heir to Witherbloom. And Witherbloom is just one of my favorite decks of all time. But yeah, this deck just grinds unbelievably hard. And it has a lot of closers now because of the way that I've adjusted it. So we have like Troll, Twisted Abomination, Gloomfang Mauler, Gary, Pestilence, Crypt Rats. There's a lot of ways to end the game while you basically just kill everything that is going to kill you or that's going to combo. So I like the game plan. I like the game theory of this. Golem, I've been really enjoying playing this deck. It's an aggressive mono black deck that uses the tempt mechanic, and it really abuses it when paired with like Thornbow Archer, Night Market Lookout, and Pulse Tracker. The last game I played with Night Market Lookout, it attacked for 24 damage over the course of a game and gained me 6 life before the game was over, because it's unblockable, right? You just swing at the person who doesn't have a blocker, and everybody takes one, and then the player takes one. And then, of course, if you get to the fourth stage of the ring, it's really good. So I love this deck. It abuses the really efficient draw spells. It gets to play Nasty End for a 2-mana draw 3. Plays the Monarch, the Initiative. Has a lot of good ETBs you can use with Grave Flickers. Plays a lot of efficient kill spells. It doesn't have to bend that hard to get into the Tempt to stage 3. And then, yeah, you have Ninjutsu to trigger the Leaves the Battlefield, and then all of these to basically reuse our creatures over and over again. You get to play Kel'Joran Dead, Culling the Weak, Dark Ritual. Like, it's just a who's who of really good spells that happen to work really good with Golem. I would say another one too that I love is Rilsa Rail. I think the Initiative in the command zone is very strong. You know, the tournament that we just had at RIW Hobbies, I went to a two wins, 1 draw, 2 losses. Admittedly, one of my losses was to somebody who killed me because I killed their dad in the previous round, which is just, it's kind of bullshit. But, you know, it is what it is. And they were like less experienced. So it's no like, you know, nothing on them so much. But the event had this like sort of element of like casual people and competitive people, and then people who thought it was a 1v1 tournament. So the results of it are a little bit fraught. And I think I fought for second and I placed 6th. And I think also had it been a 90-minute timer, I would have won my final game. So in my mind, I was kind of 4-1 in the tournament with this. So Rilsa Rail Initiative deck, you've just same thing, like cheap curve of like 1, 2, 3 mana creatures. You've got all these initiative cards and cards that repeatedly venture us into the dungeon. And then we have like ninjutsu effects. We have proliferate effects. And yeah, it's just like an aggressive mid-range deck with the initiative, and it's very good. Yeah, Carter Doomscourge is one that I'm probably going to be playing a lot more of in the future here. This is a pretty hard control deck that uses a lot of the creature cyclers to like fix its mana, find its lands, you know, get things back with Witch's Cottage, tons of kill spells, tons of ways to reuse them, recursion out the yin yang. It's got like Wrecking Ball type stuff paired with Dimir Houseguard to tutor for it. Tons of card advantage. Yeah, Skullcrusher, the way I'm going to do this is I'm actually going to link you to my my profile here. So you can take a look at any of my lists through that link right there. But with that, we're going to get back onto the Mayhem Devil here so we can finish this one up. Okay. I wonder if I need to put this in a view that I can see like this. Yes. Yeah, of course. Glad to help, Skullcrusher. And of course, join the Discord if you're not already in. You'll get a lot of great interaction with people there who can advise you as well on what you might want to play based on what you enjoy. Stompy, yeah, definitely this is the time for sort of Stompy in a sense. Like we're talking about like a low curve deck that still has kill spells in it. So basically that kind of sounds like mid-range to me. You can like apply pressure early, but then you have like kill spells and removal, or sorry, kill spells and card draw to like keep the gas coming. So what are our slots here to cut from? It looks to me, yeah, so what we're seeing here is that this eats up a lot of creature slots because these all kind of act like a creature in a sense. If we have one creature in play, or sorry, if we have two, we should say it like this. As long as you have one creature in play, that creature is going to be doing good things. So these are acting like creatures. They're basically threats. And we have 32 creatures right now, and I imagine we'll probably end at 30. And we don't have Siphon Mind in here, which is concerning. The removal, I don't really want to go down any further on, but we're probably going to have to get Parasitic Impetus. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 instant speed removal spells. It's a little light. It's a lot light. That's kind of scary to me. But I don't want to cut the creatures, so it's like draw spells, maybe? Yeah, this is the tension in Mayhem Devil. There's like so many good cards that you want to be playing. I could cut out of the 1 mana slot. There's a couple here like Goldhound, maybe. Ginger Brute, it's unblockable, but you have to pay 1 mana every time you do it. It is haste. And it is an artifact. It's also possible that we would go down on Edicts. Edicts are very good with Mayhem Devil, but usually what happens is you play like an Edict effect with Mayhem Devil in play and somebody kills Mayhem Devil. You know, that's just how it tends to happen. So the best Edict creature would be Chain Devil, just because generically Chain Devil is going to hit a lot of more important things. It's going to hit non-token creatures, so it's going to hit maybe an Abdel, but again, hitting an Abdel doesn't feel that great. TPI, it does kill. It kills a gut. You know, it hurts like the top decks in some ways. Edicts are still important though. And in the scenario where they do resolve with Mayhem Devil in play, we get a lot of triggers. So it feels like we need to lean into how good that is. You know, we could ditch Pointed Discussion, even though it has a blood token, because it's like less efficient. All these other ones are very cheap, right? Like all of our draw spells are 2 and 1. So maybe we'll cut that one. We could cut Slum Reaper and just do these 2. Although it really does feel like this deck would just love to play all of these, like Rot-Tide Garganta. Rot-Tide Garganta might actually be better than Slum Reaper here, even though it's 5, because it leaves behind a 5/4. And it's also optional. So Impact Tremors. Because I really think we need 36 lands. I think that when you're playing a deck that, well, maybe not. Let's just try, okay, let's throw 35 lands in here. And we're gonna do 35 swamp, and we're not gonna mess around with like what kind of lands. We're just gonna pretend that we have all of our lands covered, okay? Because what I want to see is I want to see what this feels like. I want to see with 35 lands and this low curve, because look at how low the curve is. Average mana cost is 1.91. That's only 0.10 above Golem. And it's a lot lower than this. Look at how much lower the curve is. 2.63. And this is a lot of this stuff too, is mana rocks. 2 mana rocks, or 2 mana rocks and 3 mana rocks. So and we've gone up on threats quite a bit. Okay, let's try this. We're going to play test it. We got to see what this feels like. So we're just going to assume we have our colors on lock. Underdark Explorer, there's no 1-drop in here. This feels kind of sad because we have our mana on lockdown, but we have no threats. Yeah, removal, creature. And we don't have too much removal in this deck. So you know, maybe an inexperienced person would look at this and say, oh, we've got too much removal. These 2 opening hands, we got removal, and this creature is 3, but it's like, no, we're going to 6 because we know this deck gets better. Okay, so we'll go to 5. Okay, all right, well, that sucks, but we can go, Gary can go, and I think we'll actually cut Reckoner's Bargain as well, because we just want to keep threats here. So we'll put these to the bottom. And let's just see how this deck does with kind of a shitty hand. We'll do Prickly Bogart. Next turn, we're going to get the Gluttonous Slug down ASAP and attack. And then we'll play a 3rd land, and we'll play 1, 2, 1 for Basilica Screecher. And actually here, what we could do, there's actually a way we can kind of cheat this, right? So let's see. If it greater power or toughness than this creature. Okay, so it doesn't really matter. We'll go Basilica Screecher, and we'll hold this because we want to extort off of this next turn. That'll put a counter on this. Attack for 2. Sign in Blood was a good draw there. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, Sign in Blood, draw 2. Impact Tremors was nice. So now we'll save the Impact Tremors for the Ginger Brute. Okay, so 1, 2, Impact Tremors, 1 for this, and then 1 extort Ginger Brute. Ping everybody for 1, ping everybody for 1, and then we're attacking. And then we have Chain Devil. So 1, 2, 3. We don't have enough right now to do Chain Devil and Mayhem Devil. We could just cast Chain Devil with extort. So what we'll probably do here is go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, extort Chain Devil, put the counter on the Gluttonous Slug. sack the Ginger Brute. It's the same damage either way, whether we attacked with this or not, because we'd have to pay for, it's actually more, because we have to pay for unblockability, and this is going to give power to the slug. So we attack, we got triggers from this. This will obviously hang back because it's got summoning sickness. And now we probably, the funny thing is, like, we play Mayhem Devil here, and it's like we don't have anything to sacrifice because we didn't get our equipment. So let's try this again. Not enough lands. See, this is where 36 lands, because 35 lands and no mana rocks is like not really enough unless your deck is like very low curve, which is what I was discovering with Real Sorrel too. So we'll mulligan. Man, these one landers are absolutely brutal. Going down to 6. We'll pitch this. Yep, pitch this to the bottom, and this is assuming our colors are correct. Go 1 mana for Ginger Brute, smack somebody. Next turn, land. 1, 2 for Dothy Slayer, swing for 1. Pay 3 here for... I mean, we could always go like Mayhem Devil, next turn cast Fleshbag Marauder. Yeah, let's just cast Mayhem Devil. And we're probably not able to attack somebody, so we attack this. Get our land. 3, 1, 2, 3. We'll probably... So here, let's do it this way. We attack for 1 to attack the combo player with this, where they don't have any blockers. We pay for the unblockability, and then second main, we'll go 1, 2, 3, Fleshbag Marauder, sack this, get 3 triggers, kill some stuff, untap, play the land. We're going to go Ren's Resolve, get 2 cards, okay, and then we'll attack, 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 and then second main, we'll play the Bat, +1/+1 counter. Next turn, and of course, if we're playing the Ren's Resolve, then we would have wanted to hold and do this, right? You always want to play this before you make your land drops in case you get 2 lands. And now we're not doing anything. This is interesting. Like we don't have our equipment. We've gone through a lot of hands and we're not hitting the equipment, but we have 10 of them in the deck. Strange. Okay, this is good. This is a very good hand. Yeah. So 1 mana, 1/1. We'll assume we'll do Okiba, I think is the way to do it. Yeah. Yeah, Okiba. Or we could actually play, if we assume this is, just assume our mana is perfect. We'll play this Goldhound, because it's got Menace. 2 here. Go 1, 2. Let's just cast this and this. So we're assuming 1 red, 1 black. And then here, 1, 2 for the Highborn Ghoul. And then attack, draw, land into Night's Whisper. Just lands. Okay, and we'll play Cranial Plating. Try and get that out early. Vault Scourge. So we're running out of gas here a little bit. But we do have the Cranial Plating and the Vault Scourge. So we'll pay full price on that. We'll equip this to this right here probably. Or maybe to Highborn Ghoul. This has first strike, so that's pretty good. And then we can attack, 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 attack. If somebody kills it, we can swap it onto something else. We'll say this dies here. There's a ceremonial knife. That's what we wanted. 1, 2, 3. Equip it onto this. Go to combat. Swing here. We're going to make a blood token and we're going to use it right away. 1, discard this, draw. Get another land. Geez, our draws have been atrocious. Is this just me, chat? Or is this just seeming like we're getting kind of hosed here? Like the deck has a ton of action in it, but we had like multiple hands with like no lands in it, like 1 landers and then no creatures in a deck that has 32 of them. Strange. This is what we're talking about. This is much more like what I'm looking for. So we go Prickly Bogart. Dothy Horror. We probably want to resolve. We'll probably go Gold Hound and then 1/2 Hasty Gingerbrute and Unblockable. And now we're in the refill stage, so we'll go 1, 2. We could also, yeah, we're gonna cast. Oh, Costly Plunder is gonna cost us a creature, so we probably go sack the Gingerbrute. Not that great. Attack, attack, attack. At this point, I don't even know if that can attack. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like, what is this? Well, yeah, I like drew like 7 hands of like no lands, and now we're getting all of the lands in a 35 land deck. This is very confusing, and we're not getting like good cards either. Like these are, I will say these cards with like these 1/1s with menace don't feel very good. Because like Shadow and Fear is a totally different story, but these might not make the cut, just based on how it's feeling now. But again, like this feels atypical. We're not drawing our equipment. We're not, yeah, I don't know. It's a little strange. Like what, 0 lands now? Come on. Come on. What the hell? Chat, I don't know what to tell you. I hope this never happens to you in a tournament though. Okay, sure. So we could try this. We've got the, I mean, Reckless Fireweaver and Beamtown Beatstick. This is probably gonna die if you like play this on turn 2 and equip this on turn 3. I think we need to cut the. We'll just leave the Bloody Betrayal bottom. Draw. Epicure was a good draw. So we'll go Epicure, hit everybody for 1, make a blood token, and then we'll draw. We'll go to attack, hit somebody because they don't have any blockers on turn 2. Play Reckless Fireweaver, draw, and then we'll go 1, 2, 3 for Beamtown Beatstick, and we're gonna create tension. We don't want them. We don't want to put it on the Reckless Fireweaver because we want to get the triggers. So let's just say nobody. Let's just say everybody leaves us alone, even though they're taking a lot of damage. This here, I think what we want to do is go Sign in Blood to find more creatures. We got a kill spell and a land. So we'll probably go to combat, make a blood token, and then second, or end of somebody else's turn, we're gonna sack one of these blood tokens to draw 2. So Whisper Silk Cloak and equip to probably the Fireweaver, but that does invite a kill spell, so this would not be guaranteed to do what we want it to do. We could always go Prickly Bogart, attack, make a blood token, pay to play Makeshift Munitions, and then just like hold up some removal this turn. Maybe we need to use Go for the Throat on something. Tormented Soul. Let's try the Whisper Silk Cloak. And we could hold the land for the blood tokens. That's kind of the thought here. And then we'll pay 2, try and equip it onto this. This is always a sketchy card because like you're doing it at sorcery speed. Protection at sorcery speed always invites people to say like, I'm never going to be able to kill this thing again. Is that okay? Do I need to kill it right now? And so it invites crimes of opportunity, which is not great. But yep. So I don't know, we'll say we'll make a 4th token. Because at this point, what we can do is we can cast Mayhem Devil, and we have quite a few triggers, and we can cycle through a lot of stuff. We can cycle through 2 cards to get some pings if we need to, but we have this in play. Like this is here. It's already doing the removal thing. Man, I feel like these draws have been so awkward. What the heck? Let's take a look at something here. Is there a build of this original build where we just play, like where we take the old build and we just add in a couple of like unblockable creatures instead of making the curve really, really low? Is there a world where we do that? Because maybe it's copium, but these draws feel bad. This is a good draw, but like right as I say that, of course. Oh, Jesus, the streamer curse. The bone splitter is very good here, but we're gonna play the reckless fireweaver first. This curve is actually insane, like genuinely very good. This is the kind of hand we want to see, right? You go ceremonial knife. I have a unblockable 2/1, and now we're gonna start making blood tokens that are gonna feed into the reckless fireweaver. That's really good. Now we've got land into vicious battle rager, or land into reckless impulse equip bone splitter. I think we probably hold the battle rager and we do the things that get the most things on the board. So we're gonna go reckless impulse, get these two. Not happy about that. That sucks, because now, like next turn, instead of playing the initiative, we kind of have to like use our cast down and deploy our makeshift munitions. But we are making lots of blood tokens, so there is that. I think what we do is we go 2 mana, equip the bone splitter to Changeling Outcast, which is potentially going to draw removal onto it, but we'll hit, make a counter, ping everybody, draw for turn, land, 1/2, deploy the makeshift munitions. Probably gets countered, in all honesty, like with a ceremonial knife and the reckless fireweaver in play. So let's just assume it gets countered, and then we'll go to combat, make another blood token, ping everybody, and say we need to like kill something now, and then end step we'll sack a blood token to discard the swamp for something else. Cranial plating is great. Corrupted conviction. So this corrupted conviction is feeling like pretty shitty right now, because we don't actually have like creatures that we want to sack with this. Like I would prefer that this was just some draw to, or a siphon mind right now. That would feel a lot better. Huh. Running into some structural stuff here. Structural things indeed. Like this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is definitely hitting hard, but like we just have the outcast. If we equip this to the outcast is 100% going to die. Bone splitter, ceremonial knife, and cranial plating on one creature is just like too juicy. Huh. Interesting. So what would it take if we went back to this original build? What would it take to... Would it be as simple as just finding some slots for some cheap, like 1 mana unblockable things, so that we just have better ways to like get these triggers? It seems like that would feel better. How many rocks do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 rocks. And then we have a whole bunch of other cards at ramp. So let's say we cut Falconwrath Noble. Say we cut Vraska's Fall, or maybe we cut Slum Reaper. Vraska's Fall being instant is really cool because you can have the edicts at instant speed with Mayhem Devil. You just play them out. Nobody sees you do anything, and then instant speed you Vraska's Fall. Oh, Pilferer is another card that we didn't add to the to that list as well, and Krark Clan Shaman, but that kills a lot of our own stuff. I think the main thing here is that what we've explored with this deck right here was kind of a reconstruction of it around this low curve, and what we're finding is that we're getting weird hands, like dysfunctional hands. Like this one, essentially like 50 slots are dedicated to producing mana. So like what if in this deck we cut, oh, we don't even have Terminate in the deck right now, or Skred. We could cut Briarblade Adept, and we could cut Slum Reaper, and we could cut potentially Bone Picker, because Bone Picker is not super reliable in this deck. Like Bone Picker is better when you have some way to sacrifice in your command zone, or if, yeah, it's just better that way. And then we could cut like Ren's Resolve and Reckless Impulse are actually kind of sketchy here because we have a higher curve, right? Huh. It feels bad to backpedal. I'm not going to lie. It feels bad. But this is probably what we should be doing. I don't know that Gurmag Angler is going to be where we want to be here. Costly Plunder, Deadly Dispute, Reckoner's Bargain. So Reckless Impulse, Ren's Resolve come out. And we still have a lot of card draw at that point. We could cut Crimson Fleet Commodore and Thorn of the Black Rose as well. I don't think we need those. All right, send me your brave energy, chat, because we're gonna. Yeah, Mono Blau, you're right, and you know this does. I would say it's like 10% of our Let's Build videos have been like a dead end, you know, and I'm getting a little bit of that. Let me know in the chat if you guys think we've dead ended here or if I'm just like catastrophizing because our hands have looked bad. Because the hands have looked bad. They felt weird. Like we have all these little creatures, but then no equipment for them, or no lands, or all lands, or like not enough creatures to want to play Corrupted Conviction and Village Rites in a deck that has 31 of them. Because technically we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards that ramp. So we kind of have like 40 mana sources, but these all take mana to play. So they're not lands, right? Whereas a rock is like immediately going to generate you, you know, something like that. Yeah, these hands just haven't felt good at all. Yeah, Jared says it's all part of the process, just part of experimentation. Yeah, absolutely. Mono Blau, I'm relatively new to MTG, and I always net deck or use precons. I have no clue how to build a deck. Well, that for one thing, I think net decking gets a bad name. I think it's perfectly reasonable to net deck, especially if you're coming to a new format. I net decked a couple days ago at Rags to Riches. I pulled a list offline, played it, learned a lot, didn't like it, you know, and I'll build it differently next time. I was playing Boros Synth, and it just felt like a lot of just like dead air and doing nothing, just like drawing cards, but just like, I don't know, it just felt like it was going nowhere. And in the future, I would build it with like Monastery Swiftspear, Seeker of the Way, you know, Voldaren Epicure, and just like more things that are like cheaper. So it was a good learning experience for sure. So yeah, it's a good way to do it. And I think you're right. This is all part of the process. The cards that I want from here, that I want in Mayhem Devil, are Dothy Slayer, Dothy Horror, potentially Gluttonous Slug, Highborn Ghoul. Okay, so at the 1 mana slot, I want Changeling Outcast. I want potentially Okiba Reckoner Raid, but like Changeling Outcast, Reckoner Raid, Prickly Bogart, potentially Shadow Alley Denizen, and then Tormented Soul and Vault Scourge. So there's like 10 creatures that I want here in the other deck. So how do we make that happen? I don't think Briarblade Adept is necessary. The whole thing of having to set up like this Encore, like the Encore is cool because it's like, it's helping us get, you know, break card parity, right? So the looting is actually like card advantage at that point. And it's actually really good because it's a discount on the creature as well. But I think the cards that we can cut are the ones that are less aggressive. So we become less reactive mid-range and more proactive. So cutting Thorn, we could cut... I wish we had it assorted by mana value here, but that's fine. Bone Picker. We'll cut Slum Reaper. We could probably cut like 1 rock and go down to 8. I think the mana is that, or the math on this that I was talking about with Bodarn recently, one of the guys who works on the back end of cPDH.guide, is that if you want to draw 1 of a card in your opening hand in a 99 card deck, you need to have 11 of it, statistically speaking, with like 90% confidence. If you're willing to mulligan to 6, which I usually am, you're pretty likely to get one of it. So like 11 removal spells is like a good number. 11 counter spells, right? 11 mana rocks. We're not going to be able to hit 11 here, I don't think. We're going to cut Falconwrath Noble. Crimson Fleet Commodore could also go. The thing about this, though, and the sad thing is that, like, this commander gives us such a good way to protect the initiative and the Monarch, right? Like, sweepers, we've got, the Crypt Rats and all this other stuff. This is a sweeper too. Oh no, we've got the scrolling bug. We're probably going to want to cut down on tap lands too. This is one of the problems the deck has traditionally had, is too many lands that are awkward. We want triggers, but like not at the expense of like having a dysfunctional, gameplay. So like the panorama is probably not good enough here. They do come into play untapped, but like, I don't know, awkward. Cradle of the Accursed can go. Dross Forge we keep. Opal Palace is great. Study Hall, great. Overlook is better than Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse. So we probably maybe just keep the Overlook. And then we probably cut Reckless Impulse, Ren's Resolve, and we'll add some more draw spells in here to like make up for what we just lost. But I think that's what's important there. And then we're going to go get Changeling, Outcast, Tormented Soul, Okiba Reckoner raid. I really like this one because it's also giving us like a source of like life gain and life drain. Like Reckoner raid, when it flips, has already hit the whole table for 6, which is the equivalent of coming down on turn 1 with haste, hitting somebody, turn 2 hitting somebody, turn 3 hitting somebody, which is very above the curve. Mono Blue, how important is the initiative and the Monarch in this deck / meta? Monarch and Initiative are, I'm going to give you a subjective answer. I think they're very good. The decks I play like to have them. I play decks where I will, in the worst case scenario, I will barter them away to accomplish my goals by negotiating with people. But in my control decks or in my reactive mid-range decks, you end up hoarding it and then winning the game with it. Like last game I played with Thrall Parasite, I just played the whole game hoarding the initiative and the Monarch once I kind of deployed it. So the plan of like Chain Devil or Pestilence or Crypt Rats into a Monarch or an initiative effect is really good. It's kind of a 60 card mentality where, when you basically get down to, the 1v1, if you're the one who has the Monarch and the initiative, you're like likely to win the game. So I think they're really, really good. Other people disagree with me. A lot of people disagree with me. I think Initiative is a lot better than Monarch. Initiative draws you... It does better stuff. Yeah, it does way better stuff. It doesn't take that much to build around it. Like, you don't need that many creatures in your deck to consistently flip off Throne of the Dead 3. Every mode is useful and relevant. It creates a lot of good decision trees. Monarch is just another card every turn, and there's a lot of other ways to do that in a lot of colors. So, okay. I think Gurmag Angler is also looking a little bit weird here. I've been consistently cutting Gurmag Angler from a lot of decks because it's like, if it's in your opening hand, it's like this unplayable 7 mana spell. So we're going to get Changeling Outcast, Tormented Soul, Okiba Reckoner. Here, let's see. Is this the old one? Yeah. So what we can do is compare this. Let's go compare. And then we're going to go find Mayhem Devil. And we're going to go to Blood Money Proactive Midrange. This is the one. Okay. So unique to V2. So we're going to want, we could just play Sign in Blood and Night's Whisper instead of the Impulses, which I think is reasonable. Offer Immortality should go in the main deck. We're going to, like, Bone Splitter would be pretty good. I want Highborn Ghoul. I want Dothy Horror. The mana costs on these are going to be kind of tough sometimes. I want Vault Scourge. Vault Scourge is going to be great for life gain. Prickly Bogart is pretty good. It's basically an unblockable 1/1. And then I think Bloody Betrayal is a card that I should have been playing anyways, but we don't have a ton of sacrifice effects. Gluttonous Slug is going to be very good here. Probably better even than it was in its original home there. And then, so now what we're creating is we're creating kind of like an upward curve, or like a slightly more downward curve than we had before. Battlefly Swarm has been pretty dang good. The ability to be a blocker for like a Dargo with Death Touch is pretty good. Thieves' Tools is probably a card that should be in the deck anyways. Like Thieves' Tools on a belligerent guest, just giving it unblockability every turn, like that's really good, strong. And now we're up to 29 creatures. We could probably cut Unstable Obelisk. We probably don't need that. And the more 1-drop creatures we play, the more these rocks become very efficient, because you can go 2 mana, play a 1-drop rock, tap it, play a Vault Scourge, or tap it, play a Changeling Outcast, tap it, play a Pilferer, tap it, play a Bogart, Tormented Soul. There's all sorts of, remove tag. All sorts of lines like that. Same on 3. If you like top deck one of these, you like play the rock, play out a creature kind of thing. You can see this is going to do wonders to our curve as well. Somebody asked me recently as well about why I'm not playing Sun-Crowned Hunters in this deck, and it might be wrong that I'm not. This is the card I'm talking about for those interested. Sun-Crowned Hunters is a 6 mana 5/4. Whenever it's dealt damage, it deals 3 damage to target opponent. And it's target, I'm realizing now. I thought this was each. Okay, never mind. We're not playing this card. If it was each, I would play this in an instant, because we just ping it with the treasures and just like destroy everybody. Battle Rage Blessing and Offer Immortality. Okay, we got both of those. I'm going to take a quick break here, and I'm going to use the restroom again because I'm drinking lots of liquids and I got to pee, so I'll be right back. Okay, and we are back. Okay, so we're back to 100 cards, but we need lands now. So we're gonna add mountain, swamp, because we want to be at 35, like that. So we need 3 cards to cut, and we've got the protection spell. Offer Immortality is under protection. Battle Rage Blessing under protection. Okay. Thieves' Tools. And then Briarblade Adept is looking a little anemic to me, in all honesty. I like that it's like pushing a lot of damage. Like for 4 mana, we're getting a, what's that card called? Mire's Grasp, -3/-3, or like a nameless inversion. We're getting -3/-3 on a single creature, or -2/-2 and -1/-1. Or if it's TPI, maybe you kill TPI and then like a pinger and then a token or something. Or like a gut and then one of its tokens. And you're pushing 9 damage on the table, and you're getting the sacrifices afterwards. So it's pretty strong, but it's also just like, I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced this is what we want to be doing. Let's pull it. 11 is kind of that magic number we talked about. Are all these in here? We might not play Haunted Fengraph. It has a sacrifice outlet and we have good creatures to get back, but it's like the colorless is going to start to get harder with more of these 1-pip creatures. But we've done a good thing to the curve. We've definitely increased the 1 and 2 on this a lot. I would also like to get the Sign in Blood and the Night's Whisper are a little tough because this deck does have problems with like keeping up on life. We could play Brain Spoil for Gary. Brain Spoil hits Underdark Explorer, Gary, Falconwrath Celebrants. Not a lot. Not a lot. But having a second Gary in the deck could be good. Brain Spoil is just a kill spell. Oh, you know what we don't have in here and we should have? We need to be playing Wrecking Ball. So Wrecking Ball is going to be the replacement for that last card. We need this card. Dimir Houseguard tutors up this instant speed land destruction spell that also kills creatures. So that was a mistake, not having that in the deck. We'd also play Final Flourish, which I've been very happy with. This could go in for... Man, there's just so many good removal spells. Like, you can easily play a 20 removal spell, you know, 20 removal spells in this deck, and you know, it's very good. Network Terminal, Honored Heirloom, Fountain of Ichor, Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone is not in here. Guardian Idol is not as good as Felwar Stone. We were playing that before because Initiative and Monarch decks really like to have these rocks that also have creatures on them. Because if you sweep the board, or if somebody else sweeps the board and everything is dead, you can animate your rock, hit them, gain the Monarch, and then you sit on it for the rest of the game, which is something I have seen demonstrated. I've demonstrated it many, many times. Bonner's Ornament, Commander Sphere is a free sack, but there's a part of me that would be preferable to have... It's kind of funny because, like, if we're curving out with a 1-drop, if you go 3 rock into a 1-drop versus like a 2-mana tapped rock and then untapping with 4, that's quite a bit better, it seems. So, because the card I'm thinking about would be Star Compass. Oh, Flywheel Racer. That's another one. This requires that we have a creature in play to crew, and if we're crewing, we're not attacking with that creature this turn, but we can attack with the Flywheel Racer. I actually had a game with Flywheel Racer recently where I got in for 12 damage with this card before somebody finally killed it, and I don't even know that it was correct to kill it, because it's just like, I don't know. It's not like a game-ending spell. Horde Robber feels like it should be back in the deck now. Yeah, we should probably play that. That's a 2-mana rock. Ornithopter of Paradise, also a 2-mana rock that has flying. It can carry a cranial plating. It's very good. Rakdos Signet. Okay, we want those. So we can cut some of the, and Star Compass. So we're going to lower the curve on the mana rocks too. So let's go get rid of Commander Sphere, even though it draws a card. That's fine. Fountain of Ichor, good card, but I think we're actually doing better with a card like Horde Robber and Ornithopter of Paradise, because Ornithopter is both a creature and it's ramp. There. And then Horde Robber is both. Mind Stone, because our mana is getting a little more specific. Rakdos Signets there, we're at 105 now, so we've gone up quite a bit. Graveyard Hate, we have Nihil Spellbomb, Honored Spare, so we could potentially cut Honored Heirloom. Honored Heirloom is a very good card, so it feels weird to do that. I would almost rather cut, let's see, how many rocks? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 rocks. 5 sweepers. This is starting to look like maybe like Shaman is really cheap in this deck, but it costs us rocks and it kills a lot of our own stuff. Crypt Rats also kills a lot of our own stuff, but you know that's like a price we're generally willing to pay. Gluttonous Slug is gonna get really big in this deck. We have a lot of ways to make that thing into like a 3 and a 4 power 2-drop menace that doesn't die to very much. Oh, we didn't have Stirring Bard in the last deck. That's really funny. Yeah, this other deck. That's so funny. How in the world are we gonna make room for 5 cards? You know, before we only had one of these, and maybe that's correct. We could also say maybe that, you know, so Crypt Rats is an amazing flip off Throne of the Dead 3 because then it comes in as a 4/4. So there's an argument for that being like really insane. Pestilence is a card that I just don't really want to cut from any deck, especially this one now because we're basically not the same like low curve deck where everything would die to Pestilence and to Crypt Rats. Now we actually have like a lot of stuff that doesn't, right? And some stuff that does. It's a mixture. We could go down on Nihil Spellbomb. I don't think we need this card. I think Nihil Spellbomb is a very good card, but I don't think that Graveyard Hate being like more than 2 or 3 of your cards is necessary. Bojuka Bog technically is not like an amazing Graveyard Hate spell because, or land, because it's sorcery speed, right? So Graveyard Hate needs to happen at instant speed, so it's more incidental. So we really have 2. So it feels like Offer Immortality might be one of the cuts, or Battle Rage Blessing, whichever one doesn't look as cool. They both look pretty cool. Or Krark Clan Shaman. Are we still considered mid-range? I feel like we have a super aggressive curve with so many low-cost creatures. I would say we are, yeah. So like the terminology that I've been using lately is we have aggro, we have proactive mid-range, we have reactive mid-range, and then we have control. And increasingly, even my control decks are starting to look more like reactive mid-range decks, like very reactive mid-range decks, because they actually have a lot of creatures in play. Like control in a lot of formats, if you're playing like Jeskai control in Modern or something, literally has like so few ways to actually end the game. They have like sharks, they have like Hollow Storm Giants, they have like milling you out with Teferi or something. Like it's just a bunch of like very few ways to win the game, right? And all of my control decks have very real ways to end the game via creatures and other effects, right? So they feel a little more like mid-rangey in a sense, but yeah. This number is too high, right? Like cut Bonder's Ornament because we have better things to do than spend 5 mana on our card. I think that's probably accurate. I think the Battle Rage Blessing and the Offer Immortality are kind of important, actually. And actually, to answer your question about the mid-range, so yeah, we're basically like we're like right in the middle of like proactive and reactive. So like dynamic mid-range would be like the way to look at it because we have a lot of these like unblockable evasive creatures, and then we have like a top end curve of like more value based stuff, and we have like a lot of tools to help us get there. So 4 cards. Do we have like, is this in draw? Is this in draw? Okay, I don't think it was. Battle Rager in draw. Because I need to see how many draw spells we have if I'm going to cut from there. Gargantua is draw. Belligerent Guest is draw. It's like a different kind of draw, right? Yeah. I'm glad that was helpful. Krark Clan Shaman is the one I'm kind of looking at because it takes like, So with Crypt Rats, it takes a bunch of mana, whereas Card Clan Shaman is manaless, but we have to sacrifice like our our rocks, and it doesn't kill things with flying, which is probably fine. Clan Shaman can also be flipped off Throne of the Dead 3, which is pretty huge. It just feels weird because like Pestilence is just one of the best spells in the format, and in a deck that makes this amount of mana, there's these turns where you like top deck it and you're like, okay, I play this, I win the game. Like you kill everything in play. Okay, next turn you play some creatures, I sink all my black mana into it, everybody dies. It's just so good. It's good when you're ahead, it's great when you're behind. So it feels weird, like I shouldn't even be looking at that card to cut. We could just say that we don't, I mean, it's weird for a mid-range deck to not have graveyard hate, because we do have reactive elements, right? This is part of our game plan, is to have reactive stuff so that we can continue to apply pressure and not die to combo. So it feels weird to like cut Nihil Spellbomb, for example. Hoarding Ogre is another one. Maybe this is like, I mean, cards that repeatedly create treasures like this kind of effect is really good. Create. Let's see what type creature. Let's just say O create. Let's just see what comes up. Let's so O token. Baked into a pie. Makes a food token, we sack a creature, not going to work for us. Contract killing does make 2 treasures, which is pretty cool because it, but yeah, I don't know. This is not where we want to be. Deadly Derision 2. But I think this is kind of like the casual thing because this is so much mana to hold up. Like you cannot develop your board and do stuff and still hold these up. It's very hard. Very hard. Just looking to see if there's anything that I missed. Is reactive / proactive midrange a common idea, or is it something you personally made up? I would say that the cEDH space likes to use they use a system similar to that. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been using that for myself. I'll just say it that way. I don't know what the origin of it is, but I've been using it for myself because because I play a lot of mid-range, I build a lot of mid-range, I have a lot of confidence in mid-range. It's like what I do. And so inherently when you start to get good at something, or you start to feel like that, like you know the ins and outs of it, then you want to start to like delineate them. And so like I was playing Real Surreal and I was realizing this deck is like really aggressive in the 99, but the command zone's kind of mid-rangey, but it's also kind of aggressive. But ultimately, it's like the deck has so much gas, right? That it's like, it is aggressive, but it has the ability to play a mid-range game, no problem. So, I don't know. It's all semantics, but I do find it useful to look at it that way. Man, even playing a card like this is really tempting, being able to reuse our stuff. Foreboding Fruit has to be 3 black, but Giant Skewer is such a sad card. This could have been such a cool card, but it's just not, because it's like when you deal damage to a creature, you make food tokens, and it's 5 mana to play and equip. It's just such a bad card. Sucks. Gilded Pinions is another card that could give flying to things. That one, there's another way to look at this where we could say, like, maybe our mana rocks want to be equipment like this, where, like Thieves' Tools, where it has another use to give things like unblockable or, flying. Big Score, Chris mentions. I don't think we want to do Big Score, namely because it's expensive. We don't have as much graveyard synergy as we want to, so it's hard to break parity on it. So it's just kind of like a 4 mana card filtering. Looting is at its best when you either have no other card advantage in your deck, like if you're in mono red, or if you can break parity with Madness or some sort of graveyard, spell. Girder Goons. Gluttonous Guest is another blood token maker, but it's just not good. 3 mana 1/4 in this economy. This Grimbound to E2. Heapgate makes treasures. This one requires you have other gates though, which we, going gates is like, I'll show you in a moment. There's really not enough gates to like guarantee that you're going to be able to do that, and it's pretty mana intensive. It's 3 mana to make 1 treasure token. It's like not that good. Merit is a card that I really wish we could play. It's pretty sick. Ironically, we're like looking at, this is actually kind of interesting. ETBs or dies make a treasure. It's also pretty good. Like we're talking about ways to like cut cards right now, and I'm looking at ways to add cards. This is not an uncommon thing on these live streams. Deck building is hard, so. Stone Retrieval Unit, Suspicious Shambler. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I really like this now because it's like unblockable for Mayhem Devil, unblockable for Hordling Outburst. It's unblockable for Hoarding Ogre, or not Hordling Outburst, but a Horde Robber. Undercity Scrounger is interesting. You can play it out, and if things are dying around the table, then you're making treasures. But again, we have to think about these as not ramp spells because they take other things happening for them to work, so they don't occupy the spot of a rock. This one a little bit different because it is going to ramp us at first. Zentrum Bandit is the other one, but the life loss hurts. The life loss hurts, and it's nice that it's an attack trigger, but it's also like a 2/1. It's gonna make a treasure and then die. Basically, is the way that works. We'll just like do type gate real quick here, because there's not a whole lot. You're gonna see there's like 6. Yeah, so like, heap gate doesn't really compute for me, because we already have all these tap lands we want to play. That. Yeah. It's funny. Okay, so 35 lands, and then what is our cut? Like First Fair Garganta is 1 because we don't have a lot of blood tokens in the deck, so that's an option. I think we can do that. We'll just do it. I hate to cut that card because it's just it's so much card advantage with a blood token. But if you don't have blood tokens, it's like 6 mana for a 5/4 that draws a card and then dies and then comes back. I mean, it's still good, but is it better than like having some reasonable stuff to do earlier on? I don't think so. We're so close. 3 cards. 3 cards. Feels like one of them is something out of here. We could probably cut like a 2-drop. Like maybe we could cut the 1/1/1/1/1/1. Reckoner's Bargain. Nihil Spellbomb could be the other one. Like Nihil Spellbomb, and then maybe. It's funny. This is an example where, because we're an initiative deck, the Crypt Rats and the Krark Clan Shaman are just really, really gross. Like Car Clan Shaman always kills itself when it activates, but if it's 4 toughness because it came in off throne, it's so game ending. It's a repeatable sweeper every single turn, and that's the same thing Pestilence is. It's just that Pestilence also kills people. But, you know, if you kill their whole board, it's kind of the same thing as killing them because you're going to win. If you have the throne of the... So maybe the idea here is that we go, like, keep one of these and then keep these 2 because they're good throne hits. And these, like, basically are only for our commander. And admittedly, Battle Rage Blessing and Offer Immortality, if you use them proactively, it invites killing the Mayhem Devil. So they do sit dead in hand for a long time. Maybe that's the answer. These are modal, which is really nice. But like the idea around this whole deck was always that you play Mayhem Devil, and if it doesn't get countered, you're immediately holding up all of your treasures and all your sack outlets and everything. And that it's not really built around Mayhem Devil. And these are some of the only cards in the deck that are just like only for Mayhem Devil. They do work with other things, but like... And when they resolve, the upside is enormous. So there is that. I think we can do Battle Rage Blessing. We'll do to Considering. And we're going to have to make a compromise here. Celebrants is another possibility, but it's like an evasive 4/4. It's really good. Maybe like... I mean, these double black cards are going to be harder to cast on 2. So it could be the Dothy Slayer and Highborn Ghoul go, which makes me sad because I really, really like these cards. These are like some of my favorite, you know, favorite creatures to play in black. But the double black early on could be a problem. Like how much black mana do we have? It's like mostly black. Okay, so it's mostly black. Damn. Yeah, Mayhem Devil is always hard to build. That is, this is what we're seeing here. Always a hard deck. Never easy. You've always got to fight for every slot. You can see there's 120 cards in Considering here. How many rocks do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8... 8. I don't really want to go any lower than that. So if we cut like maybe Highborn. So is Highborn Ghoul better because it can block than something like Dothy Slayer? Because Highborn Ghoul has Intimidate, but which is mostly unblockable. Horde Robber might actually be still the weird one here. Like how often is this good? Like as a top deck, it's very bad in the late game. So yeah, we'll cut it. And then the last one. Jesus Christ. Just, you know, just doing things like this when I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. Just change the printing. It's like this is where the cuts are got to come from, just inherently. So is it this one or that one? Or Slug. Slug gets bigger. It survives sweepers. It doesn't die to very much. That's one of the reasons I like Slug. As a top deck later on, it kind of could feel bad. But it's like better in your opening hand. Late game, not that great. Flip it off throne, it's pretty freaking insane. There's Prickly Bogart, but I feel like the 1/1s for 1 are like more important. So let's just cut Dothy Slayer. Yeah, we'll do it like that. Okay, so we've got 100 cards. Okay, here's an opening hand. This is a good opening hand. I like this. We got the Vault Scourge. We've got the Vicious Battle Rager. If we draw any 2-mana rock, we'll be able to go into the Vicious Battle Rager on turn 3. If we get something off the top, so we'll keep it. Okiba Reckoner Raid is a weird draw. because now we actually can't play both of these on curve. Oh, no, we can. So we go here, sacrifice it, find a swamp, and then we go to Study Hall, pay the 2 life for Vault Scourge, pay the 1 life for Okiba Reckoner Raid, drain everybody. We've got 2 counters on this now. We'll do, unfortunately, this curve here is a little awkward. We've got to go Rakdos Carnarium, pick this up, just attack, gain some life, or this doesn't attack yet, but hits everybody, and then it turns over. And then we can go Study Hall into 4 mana. And we actually have like quite a few creatures in play. We can go initiative, sack everything for everybody, and then like hold the initiative here is pretty good. Belligerent Guest is also great. But the most efficient thing to do is to go find a land. So we're going to go find a mountain, I think, is what we want. And then Maestros Theater is going to go find us a swamp. And then we'll attack here. We've got a blocker. I think that there's a good chance on turn 4 that we untap and we put 2 +1/+1 counters on this because we've gotten the Forge. I don't think anybody can get it from us on turn 4. And we'll draw a card. And we'll go Mountain, I think. And we have 5 mana. We could go this into that. I think that seems good. We'll go this, Belligerent Guest, or Honored Heirloom. Wow, this feels so much more functional than what we were doing before. Huh. So interesting. 1, 2, 3, cast a Belligerent Guest. Our Cranial Plating is going to start to get really good. I think at this point we probably swing still with these ones. And then I think we still have the Monarch, so we'll goad on the next one. Go Command Tower. Oop. And you can see the Mayhem Devil is like a closer, right? Like we're doing all this stuff. It doesn't need the Mayhem Devil. We're going to cast this later on and it'll be good. So we have 6 mana. We could play Cranial Plating. We could play a Chain Devil. Oh, we have 7 actually with this. So we'll go 1, 2, 3. Oh, we could actually do Chain Devil and Mayhem Devil. So 1, 2, 3. Cast Mayhem Devil. Or we could do, let's see. How do we want to do this? Probably go to combat first. Swing with this stuff. We're going to make a blood token. It really depends like what we need to do. Because if we just need everybody to sack something, Chain Devil comes down. You know, we don't need to do Mayhem Devil. We could do Cranial Plating this turn. You know, hook up, you know, this thing or this thing with the Cranial Plating and start going to work there. And then follow up with the Chain Devil. Or we can go Mayhem Devil into Chain Devil and get a bunch of triggers. Like this. In this case here, we probably sacrifice the tapped creature. Get a bunch of triggers. Somebody probably kills this, in all honesty. We probably have to block to keep the initiative. So we'll make a 4/1 skeleton. Is it O skeleton? No, it's just skell. Yeah. Make the 4/1. And then we'll draw for the turn. Gold Vein Pick. Woo! Okay, so we can go 1, 2, 3. Gold Vein Pick. Attached to this thing. And then we'll do 1, 2, 3. Attach Cranial Plating to Vicious Battle Rager. And because we're so close to the throne, I think we're going to start swinging here. And then we can just get it on, you know, the next turn. So we'll play Maestros Theater and we'll get a swamp like that, tapped. We've got 1 mana for the treasure. So we swing, we're going to make another treasure. Swing, swing, or a blood, and then we'll also make a treasure. And you can see this is where we start building up into just having a lot of permanents on board. Like we can go 1 mana into this, discard this to get something else, and then 1 mana for this to discard whatever we get next time. But just going to go here. So 5 mana for our commander, 6 if we want to study hall it. I think what we do is we go to combat first. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, this is like 7 power right now. So this feels great. Like this is the Mayhem Devil I fell in love with. This is the ridiculous Rakdos, just like so sick. Obviously this is turn 8. But you know, the amount of stuff that we're doing here is great. So not enough lands there. Do 1 more of these. Yep, that looks good. We'll draw for turn. If we get a creature, this is going to be a very strong start. So we'll go swamp. Give us a creature. Nothing. Okay. So we'll just go Star Compass. So we're basically ramping into Falkenrath Celebrants right now. 4 mana. Don't have a ton to do. So we'll just get down the Prying Blade and then hold up Interaction with the Grasp of Darkness. Next turn, 4 Celebrants, 2 blood tokens, like that, and draw for turn. We could have actually played Mayhem Devil on 3 and then equip the Prying Blade. That would have probably been the correct thing to do. Just accepting that it probably wasn't going to stick around very long, but we could equip it to a Prying Blade and start getting to work there. Yeah, that was definitely the thing to do. Instead of taking a turn off. Turn 5. So now, probably go 1, 2, equip this, go to combat, make a treasure, and then 1, 2, 3, we could just play out a Mayhem Devil, and then we have we can discard 2 cards and make 4 triggers right now if we want, which would probably be, which is weird because we also have just 2 mana to cast a kill spell. One, 2, 3, 4. Well, we can actually, this is a lot of triggers potentially. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is really funny, chat. We basically did like a full circle experience here with basically, like, when I was playing this before, what I was frustrated by is these effects not having like cheap unblockable creatures to put them on, and so I was like, well, geez, we should lower the curve, get a bunch of cheap creatures in there, like really focus on like 1, 2, and 3, and cut some of the clunkier stuff just to make it more efficient. And then cut the mana rocks and all that stuff. But it ended up feeling like dysfunctional, where we'd have like a lot of mana and nothing to do, or we would have no mana and a whole bunch of stuff to do. And that felt really weird. It's possible it's like some recency bias, just because like the 10 hands that we went through just felt shitty. It didn't feel good. And this feels like we just modified the original deck to have those unblockable creatures in it. So the answer wasn't to start the deck from scratch. The answer was to just get the cards that I wanted in there. So these unblockable creatures in particular, the Prickly Bogart, Tormented Soul, Vault Scourge, Changeling Outcast, Dothy Horror, Highborn Ghoul. Admittedly, a lot of our early plays are not red. So there's a part of me that thinks that we actually just need a lot more swamps here. I'm not even sure that the lands having sacrifice triggers on it are actually that good. they do weird things where like you feel like you need to hold on to them because the point of them being in the deck was to feed into Mayhem Devil and have all of these like uncounterable sacrifice effects that are just built into your mana base. But like the instances in which we actually have one of those with Mayhem Devil in play is not that common. So like we're really like we just if we're lowering the curve, we need to get some of these tap lands out of here. So I'm thinking that maybe we keep the ones that gain life and then not the Terramorphic Expanses and not the Evolving Wilds. That's probably correct because how many tap lands or untapped lands? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 23, 24, sometimes 25. So that's a lot of tap lands. That's like 10 tap lands. That's more than I'm stoked on. So let's cut the Terramorphic and we'll cut the Evolving Wilds and we'll just add in some basics. And it might not even be a mountain there. Might be a mountain. Yeah, okay. And I almost wonder if Staunch Throne Guard is a better like Monarch card for this deck because it's like so big. Like Staunch Throne Guard is probably one of the better Monarch cards that is out there just because it's so big and it has vigilance. It's like feeds itself basically. It's like you play it and you have the blocker. And every turn you're going to have that blocker, which is pretty cool. But it's 5 mana, so... because what I'm feeling right now is it feels like we're a little low on card draw, like actual card draw. Because like Mind Stone isn't card draw until you're empty. And Costly Plunder and Deadly Dispute sacrifice our rocks as well. So these are almost the same thing. So our only actual just raw draw spell is like Point of Discussion and Siphon Mind. Like these are sacrificing our rocks. Synth might not be right for this deck. We have like a curve of like an upper cost curve of stuff. I think Synth is going to come out and we're going to just put in some raw card draw. So Night's Whisper. Synth is interesting. Like it's a good card, but I just don't think the Impulse Draw is good when we have expensive stuff and when we have reactive stuff. Like I cut Impulse Draw from Third Path Iconoclast because there's a combo in the deck too and you don't want to exile it, but also because like putting kill spells in there just feels weird. It's like, here's my heads up kill spell. It's a lot of looting in the deck and nothing that goes into the yard. We have no graveyard synergy stuff except for these cards here. No way to get back those things, like with a Reaping the Graves. It's definitely getting pulled in a lot of directions. Oh, we have multiple sweepers categories. Weird. And so Night's Whisper, be great to get Sign in Blood here as well, but I don't know where that's going to come from. So we've got our low curve here. It's about 50-50, low curve, mid curve, and then we just have like a couple of 5 mana spells. This is totally a deck that would love to have the ability to search for a dual land and then like reanimate it and cast it later on. Like having the Oliphant and the Troll of Khazad-dûm would be so sick. Be so sick in this deck. They're both really good cards. Maybe because they are MDFCs, maybe we do just want them anyways. Because we do have Blood Fountain and all these things here. So what if we... Because like it's a very small package to go Oliphant. Or we could just do the black ones too. Right? Like Gloomfang Mauler or Twisted Abomination. Like this is really this is like a good color pairing to be playing the cycling creatures. It's just that there's so many other things we're doing here that it's like there's a lot of like weird tension between our slots. Right? Like we want blood token stuff, we want things that pay off our, you know, our treasure making. It could be that, you know, that even with the 20 artifacts that the Reckless Fireweaver and the Ingenious Artillerist aren't like high impact enough, you know, compared to just making us more consistent, right? Like if we could make 3 slots and get Oliphant, Troll of Khazad-dûm, and Reaping the Graves in here, that would be really good. That would be that would make me quite happy. But these are like low curve things. And Oliphant and the other one are technically too. They're finding us our land. And this deck does want lots of mana. But these cards are like big payoffs for treasure making. My experience with these is that they die pretty quick. You play them out, somebody kills them. Because they don't want to take like 1 to 2 damage every turn. And if you load them up with equipment, then they definitely kill them. And we have 20 artifacts, but we have a lot of ways to make artifacts too. And we still have Whisper Silk Cloak in here, don't we? Yeah, we were drawing that card, weren't we? Oh no, we don't have that one in this list. Yeah, okay. Let's play this here. Okay, we'll keep this. Go Swamp, Changeling Outcast. This is a great hand, actually, because we're going to go land into Ornithopter. Costly Plunder is a good draw. So we'll go Nihil Spellbomb. And in fact, actually, maybe we go Riveter's Overlook, find our mountain, like that. And then we go Nihil Spellbomb, and then we can actually sacrifice our Ornithopter here, or we could sacrifice Nihil Spellbomb. That's the way to do it. 1, 2. Okay, so instead of finding this here, we'll just shuffle that up here. We'll just put this back in hand. We'll go Costly Plunder on Nihil Spellbomb and pay the black to draw 3. 1, 2, 3, like that. Sick. Okay, now we can go Geothermal Bridge, or the Drossforge Bridge. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is going to give the initiative to somebody else too. But we can always get it back with the dude. So I presume on going into turn 5, somebody can get it from us, like a Malcolm. Yeah, this is just like good mid-range stuff. I think I'm happy with where we're at. This deck is, like I said, it's very hard to like build. There's just a lot going on, and you get pulled in a lot of directions. Mirkwood Bats is kind of what made me come back to it. I'm glad we did. I think we're going to be set for here tonight. Just to kind of wrap up what we were talking about before, we explored really like lowering the curve and basically just trying to get more aggressive. And what it showed us was that we were getting a lot of like, this is a good hand. Where was this hand? But it just felt like there was like a lot of awkwardness. Like we didn't have enough mana sources in the deck it felt like, with 35 lands and then like no actual rocks. But in trying to keep the creature curve low and very dense, you know, above 30 creatures, and then having all these modifications, like where you're making them do more things, this is what's eating up our rocks, right? Along with, you know, just having more 1-drops. So, yeah. Anywho, I think what we're going to do is we are going to wrap things up here and call it quits for the night, because I think this has been a productive stream. We've accomplished what we set out to do, which was to do something Mayhem Devil related, and I think we have it right here. So we've just modified this original deck to make it better, and I'm happy with it. So yeah. Well, anyways, if you've enjoyed this live stream, I do hope you do the free thing and leave a like on the video. Make sure to leave a comment below if you have any feedback for us, constructive or otherwise. You can also DM me on Discord if you have anything you'd like to see done or anything you'd like to have us do to improve the channel. I want to take a quick moment to shout out all of our dear patrons, the people who financially support what we do and ensure that we can continue to make this content. So, and we have a new one. Wow, that's exciting. So yeah, let's list off a couple of the people that we really just appreciate for what you do. We've got the PDH pod, we've got the Sanctuary PDH, we've got Jack, we've got Eric, we've got Adgen, Jerry, Zach, Scooby, Chris, Mizu, William, Paul, Corey, Derek, Devin, Ian, Bobby, Jin, Shooting Star, and Noyark. So thank you all. Appreciate you all. And we've got a Liam. Interesting. Maybe this is our new person. It doesn't say what they signed up at, but it seems like we do have one more person. So anyways, if you too would like to join the Patreon and to support the channel, but also to earn some really awesome benefits, I'm going to show you where you can find it. Got that sneeze. There it comes, like a whirlwind. Okay, Common Connoisseurs. We've got the patreon.com/Common Connoisseurs, where you can choose between a $2, $5, $10 a month membership plans. We also have a $20 and a $50 membership plans for those of you out there who are really excited about what we're doing and able to cover such an expense. But at that $10 a month, which is a really great price here, we have member shoutouts, exclusive access to the Discord channel, early access to videos. You get to vote on Let's Builds, which is something we're going to be doing in the coming months. You'll be able to vote on one Let's Build a month. And then all the templates that you see here, I made custom. Those are things that you get even if you did 1 month. All those files are yours to use. Yeah, so these are great ways to do it. And we've got Jared saying it was fun hanging out and watching the process. Jared, thanks for joining us. And like I said, it was really, really great to see you in the flesh down at Rags to Riches. So yeah, definitely eager to chat more and scheme, talk about things. And I'm glad you were here tonight to hang out with us. It was good having you. So, with that said, connoisseurs of fine common cardboard, I hope you have a great rest of your evening wherever you are at in the world. Thank you so much for joining us. Join the Discord, leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications about gameplay videos that we don't put on the schedule. And with that, we're going to sign off. Hope you have a good night. We've got Zvonimir. Thank you for doing this. Hey, Zvonimir. Thanks for saying that. Appreciate having you, and we'll catch you in the next video. Peace out, connoisseurs. Have a good night.